As a spirit, Grohan realizes that I have been reborn as a sword. Over hundreds of years wandering, I have met many masters and turned them into legendary heroes. Then I met my comrade, a boy born in a nameless village, Leon Beck. We traveled the world together and achieved feats no one could match. On a freezing day, lightning continued to strike down. In an instant, the explosion caused a violent shockwave. He now struggles to hold on to Grohan, bending his knees slightly, still fighting against the harshness, but in front of him is the ferocious evil dragon, not giving the opponent a moment to rest, and it begins to roar. The situation forced him to stand up again. At that moment, the evil dragon unleashed a massive surge of dark energy. He didn't hesitate and unleashed his magic with explosive power, but his attack was quickly repelled by him. Then he smiled and said, "Let's go, my friend." As soon as he finished speaking, he drew his sword and charged straight at the target. The evil dragon only had time to see his determined figure.
In the next moment, he leapt up directly and swung his sword straight at the evil dragon's head.
And finally, the precise strike was unleashed. When we defeated the white dragon of the mountain range with a spear, my comrade became the ruler of a kingdom, and I became part of the legend of the Dragon Slayer. At that moment, he pleaded, "Please, Ruan, take care of my descendants." And this was also remembered and passed down to the heirs of that comrade. The moment I opened my eyes again, Gruon noticed the commotion, and since I had just woken up, I felt very annoyed. Why is it so noisy? But just a minute later, Gruhan had to exclaim, "This is so distracting. Who dares to shake this body?" Meanwhile, Andre is shouting, "From now on, the owner of this sword is me." Others quickly try to intervene, Your Highness. The soldiers immediately urged him to return it to its original place, as it was a thing only His Majesty was allowed to touch. And upon hearing this, Gruhan appeared surprised. "What, a prince?" He immediately looked back at Andre. "This pig, on the other hand, is still causing trouble." "Shut up. In this country, there's nothing I can't touch." This is hard for Gruon to believe. It just can't be true. Then he quickly activates his judgment. I must verify this with my power. When this information was revealed, Rahan was truly speechless, looking at the name Leon B, and realizing he was indeed a descendant of a comrade. However, he himself was suspicious and exclaimed, "A descendant of the Sword Saint with such potential?" Andrion angrily said, "If I get this, both the Emperor and the nobles won't be able to ignore me anymore." Seeing that, I only grew more contemptuous. He's truly a fool, daring to spout such reckless words, yet he doesn't realize he should be shouting. "Great Dragon Slayer, lend me your strength."
"Are you crazy? Why should I lend my power to someone like you?"
Nevertheless, Andrion still arrogantly shouted, "Ruhon!" He wildly swung his weapon, terrifying everyone. "Ruhon, Your Highness, please stay calm. You're not allowed to draw your sword in the palace, but what you get in return is silenced fury. How dare you order me around? Do you want to die?" He ran while threatening. "As soon as I have Gruon's power in my hands, your monsters will—" At that moment, Andrion's body suddenly wavered involuntarily. The sword pointed away from him and the tip inched closer in an instant. The next moment, all the soldiers' faces darkened. Delia hurriedly covered her mouth to stop her scream, and the next moment, frantic shouts rang out. "Your Highness," in that situation, Gruon was also panicked and hurriedly called for the royal doctor. And when he looked back at Andrion, he realized the one stabbed was this bastard. Suddenly, Gruon's consciousness faded, his vision blurring. Though unwilling, he only managed to think that if this continued, he would faint for the first time in his life as a swordsman. If Prince Andrion inherits the throne, this kingdom will have no future. He lacks any royal talent, but is the most arrogant of all. He has no ability, but his greed is the greatest in the kingdom. He's a stupid pig, lazy and cruel. That is, Crown Prince Andrion Leon Beck, like a dark cloud overshadowing the future of the kingdom. After he was stabbed and wandered near death before waking up, strange rumors began to spread. The servants have started talking about Prince Andrion. It seems like he's changed a bit lately. That's right. He no longer flips the dining table like before. He also stopped gathering his thugs, right? Then they started mocking him. Even the renowned crown prince should feel ashamed, right? Isn't he just lying still out of fear? Let's see. After a while, he'll just go back to his old habits. Meanwhile, Andrion is inside the room. However, the main character in the story, Prince Andrion, doesn't care at all about those rumors. I can't believe it's me. His mind is now in shock, having killed the descendant of his comrade and stolen his body. At this moment, an announcement rings out from outside. "Your Highness, His Majesty has arrived. Please quickly straighten your attire to prepare for the arrival of His Majesty." He frowns after hearing this. No, he didn't even bother to visit when I was about to die, so why is he coming now all of a sudden? "Your Highness, the royal knights are very close by. Please be careful with your words." Your master appears with an air of dignity. "I heard you came back from the dead, but it seems your temper is still the same." He casually orders you to step back since His Majesty isn't expecting anything anyway, but Andreon is still stunned. Who is this? Then your teacher suddenly questioned me. We still have our teacher-student bond, so why do you now act as if you don't know me? Does this mean he is the master of this pig? Meanwhile, he continues to call out, Your Highness. Andreon hesitated and replied, My memory is all jumbled up. I feel like I remember who you are, but I might not. He immediately showed a surprised expression. Huh? Don't say it was at the right moment, a voice interrupted them. His Majesty, the King, has arrived. Still, Andreon remained indifferent. The King, he lazily thought to himself. He must be the father of this guy. But he quickly widened his eyes in shock, realizing he's better than I thought. In front of Andreon, the Emperor stands there coldly. I thought that, over time, the lion's blood would have diluted into dog blood, and you even admit it yourself. But looking at the King, maybe that's not the case. The Emperor suddenly spoke, noticing how his son didn't even bother to greet his father. It seems that surviving an encounter with the Grim Reaper can't change who you are. Your master immediately reports the news. Your Majesty, I just heard that His Highness's memory is not intact. A soldier hurriedly exclaimed, Oh my God, what a disaster! Why didn't the doctor report such a serious matter to Your Majesty? Summon the royal physician immediately to examine the prince again. But he remains convinced that he finds no abnormalities on the prince's jade-like body. The imperial doctor made a diagnosis, but it's likely a temporary condition caused by psychological shock. The emperor suddenly muttered, Memory loss, and you're worried. Has he figured it out? But he sneered. How convenient that is. If you say you no longer remember anything, and the emperor directly criticizes, does that mean everything you have done so far never happened? Before he could let you understand, he continued speaking. Sometimes people make wrong choices and can commit actions condemned by the whole world. But if you realize afterwards and never repeat the same mistake again, that can also be called a learning process. With disappointment, the emperor sternly said, But you have forgotten all of that. Moreover, he blamed me because everything had become as if it never happened, so I couldn't move forward from my past mistakes. In the end, the emperor declared that I would never improve in the future. Your Majesty, please calm down. Still, Andreon is quite shocked. He's outright insulting me to my face. As he turns away, I mutter a curse under my breath. Damn it, I really stepped into the wrong mess. Forget being treated like a prince. It seems I'm not even considered human anymore. Then Andreon looked at this body himself. What kind of life has this kid been living? At that moment, he was suddenly pulled away. Queen Yan immediately embraced him and comforted him. I've heard everything. You must be feeling very confused. Your memory will come back soon, and she even held on tighter. No, that trivial past, if you don't remember, so what? Then, the Empress sadly said, I didn't expect your beautiful face to look so haggard. My poor son Andreon, after hearing that, shivered and wondered where Xiao Tui was. Then she forced a strained smile. Anyway, I am very happy that you were able to open your eyes and wake up like this. If anything bad happens and you don't wake up again, she whispered with a bitter smile. Then the Empress sadly continued, I really can't bear to think about it anymore. Andreon felt a bit guilty. Sorry, but your son has already died. The chaos within him continued until night, and it truly became a heavy burden. It was only after a long while that the queen finally let go and said, I will visit my son again. Rest well. Thanks to that, Andreon was able to breathe a sigh of relief. And taking this opportunity, he reflected on everything. The comrade begged me to take care of his descendants, yet I ended up killing someone. Although it wasn't intentional, I was the one who ended his life. The more I think about it, the more I feel uneasy because things have come to this point. I don't know how I can live well for the sake of the one who has passed away. Then Andreon made up his mind to reincarnate as a sword. I have spent my whole life cleaning up others' messes. Even though I am a fat body with no talent, it doesn't matter. With that thought, he clenched his fist tighter. I just need to rebuild my strength. Do you know how many children I have raised? Without hesitation, Andreon immediately stood up. First, I need to forge a mana heart. He takes a deep breath to absorb some mana and then concentrates to gather it into a small source of energy. The mana blazes brightly, like a flame. However, in the next moment, it disappeared, leaving Andreon stunned and slack-jawed. Fear washed over him, causing him to break out in a sweat. The mana has been dispersed. This body can no longer absorb it. Andreon hurriedly gathers more again. This time he grits his teeth as she holds on to them once more. Come on, let your whole body surge again with the flow of magic. However, the final result brought him to his knees. Panting, Andreon muttered to himself, What? What kind of monstrous body is this? At that moment, Andreon desperately shouted, If I had my original body, I could easily modify this physique by forcing mana into it. At this moment, there was a knock at the door. Your Highness, sorry to bother you. When she entered, the servant brought in a steaming bowl of medicine. This is a special tonic sent by the Empress. It may be a bit unpleasant, but it will be very good for your body. She tried to stay calm and said, "Please consider the Queen's intentions." After finishing, the servant revealed a frightened expression, hoping in her mind that he wouldn't throw the bowl away like last time.
At that moment, Andrion shouted, "I told you I wouldn't take the medicine," but now he's very surprised.
He immediately saw the mana inside, which contained mana itself. Then Andrion decisively grabbed the potion, drank it all in one gulp, and finished it quickly. This action made the servant stare at him in shock, while he roughly handed back the cup. "Are you satisfied now? Now go." Faced with that request, she hurriedly replied, "Yes, Your Highness," and Andrion quickly refocused. "Good. Now once again." He closed his eyes tightly and poured all his mana into his hand. Feeling it was better, he let out a sigh of relief, glad it worked. However, Andrion was still concerned, as the mana was still insufficient and so little that it would vanish after just one day. But thinking that way, he quickly called this servant, and she responded immediately, "Yes. I won't beat around the bush and ask directly, do you still have that thing?" A few days later, Andrion's mana production increased, and only then did he smile with satisfaction. "Finally," I exclaimed, "finally I can create Mana's heart." The energy at that moment pressed into my chest. I've done this countless times before, something like Mana's heart. I could do it blindfolded. Suddenly, Andrion's face darkened for a moment, and the sensation was so real that he suddenly realized how much it hurt. Thinking back, he briefly remembered the previous descendants. It hurts so much, like his internal organs are burning, and his chest feels like it's going to explode. At this moment, Andrion suddenly realized that creating a mana heart was just as painfully exhausting as he had always thought, but he clenched his teeth tightly, determined not to lose consciousness. Thinking of the worst case, he immediately told himself that if he fainted now, he would lose control of his mana. Then he closed his eyes tightly to stay calm, holding his heart with both hands and constantly reminding himself to focus. When the time is right, Andrion clenched his hand, grasping the chaotic mana core, not rushing. While he regulated the flow of mana along the path that runs through the heart to the right side, gradually everything became as still as water, slowly allowing the new heart to be absorbed. Andrion himself also calmly absorbed them, then slowly opened his eyes to check. Seeing that everything was fine, he exclaimed happily, "It's done!" Even Andrion was very excited. This time, it wasn't someone else's mana heart but my own mana heart, and it was only for me. With this pride, he shouted loudly, "I did it! It's complete!" As he celebrated, the system panel suddenly appeared. "I have created a mana heart." He was stunned for a few minutes by the surprise. Then Aiden hesitated slightly. "Is this a status window?" To verify, he even tried to touch it. It looked exactly like the status notifications I used to send to my masters when I was a sword. Why is it appearing to me now? At the same time, the system suddenly activates. What? Wait a minute. The next second, he was surrounded by countless notifications. What the hell is this? In the end, the system provides the heavenly eye and the wind-listening ear. Andrion listens and becomes suspicious. That power, in that moment, your vision suddenly expanded. Andrion could even observe each leaf. Indeed, I can see more clearly than before, and I even caught a few voices inside. Isn't it strange that I can't hear what they're saying? Everybody that got outside can be heard. Don't you know it is character? They must have caused a big commotion. Andrion looked surprised. I can still hear the sounds outside the door, but then a headache suddenly interrupted me. The system quickly reported that the mana was depleted, and Andrion suddenly realized that was the case. So this is what extreme limitation means? At the same time, he feels a bit regretful, realizing that he can see everything in all directions without a single blind spot. The absolute sense I had when I was a sword is now gone. Standing in the middle of the spacious room, I silently think that for now, by draining what little mana I have left like this tiny tail, I can only eavesdrop on sounds outside the door or see things a bit more clearly. Andrion reassures himself that things might change once he expands his mana pool. As soon as he finishes speaking, his stomach growls loudly. My mood worsened because of that. I'm hungry. The servant quickly responds, "The food will be brought up right away." Meanwhile, Andrion is quietly reminding himself, "First, I need to focus on adapting to this human body." Not long after the meal, the Empress walks in looking refreshed. It's admirable how she kept praising you for drinking all the medicine without leaving a drop that your mother sent. Finally, you have learned to respect your own body. At that moment, someone appeared and the Empress suddenly said, "Oh, right." She then Jin asked him, "Do you recognize who this is?" Andrion immediately denied, "No." Hearing that, she anxiously advised B, it seems he really has lost his memory. So you have to help this child then? Andrion's younger brother faintly guessed. I was still wondering who it was. So it turns out he's the Emperor's younger brother, while the Empress is convincing him. After all, isn't he her only nephew? Bu just sneered on this side, as if she had just lost something very important. After all, it wasn't exactly a happy past. He immediately judged that just by looking, it seemed like he didn't like me, and instead he started speaking in a harsher tone. Let me make one thing clear. Bu directly states, I can only help you get rid of some of that excess fat. Then he emphasized, I can't give you anything but. That's so forget about useless expectations. The queen quickly nodded. That's already more than enough. Still, Bu reminded him not to forget that feeling. Even in that situation, he was the only one still confused, facing Andrion with Bu's terrifying gaze. When you go to the training yard, he forcefully pushes you down. Then B sternly announces, from now on, you must have my permission to eat, drink, or breathe. If you expect to be treated like a prince, give up immediately. He also sneered sarcastically, do your best. Who knows, I might change my mind and teach you a secret sword technique of our family. Andrion was stunned after hearing this, finding it truly ridiculous. You think it's me, the trainer who taught the undefeated knight and was the master of the founding king who built this country? Still, Bu keeps criticizing him. Look at your trembling fat. You must be really furious. Hold back your anger for now. I suggest we make a bet. Andrion looked straight at him and proposed that within half a year, I will make everyone acknowledge me. I have to crush that arrogant look of his. At the same time, he set a condition that if I failed, I would do anything he asked. But if I succeeded, he would grant me one wish. Bu also showed interest and curiosity about that. Then he agreed. All right, let's go with that then. I should have at least one thing to entertain myself, right? But it didn't take long before Andrion shouted out, this damn body. I look at myself and regret being so boastful, but without hesitation, I immediately channel mana into my legs and run, thinking I need to use mana to focus on burning fat all over my body. As soon as he sensed Bu's reaction, he flinched sharply. Don't tell me he's rushing in to stop him. Andre, Bu's person, deliberately slowed down to observe the surrounding mana flow, then hurriedly asked, do you really have the mana heart now? As for Andrion, a slight smirk appeared on his lips. This one? Then he deliberately boasted. Yes, I just created it a little while ago. What's wrong? Are you regretful for betting already? But what you get in response is a scolding. What the hell were you thinking creating a mana heart? Bu quickly questioned further. No, forget about that. So where did you learn to forge a mana heart? Look at you. It seems like you don't even realize what you did wrong. Andrion over here is very confused about that mana heart, but what he heard next shocked him. It's a crude technique only low-level mercenaries would learn. The sound from his mouth trembled as Andrion couldn't hold back and shouted loudly. What? Andrion in front of him was sweating with fear. It truly marks the end of an era. The previous words echoed in his mind. The mana heart is just a primitive technique only low-level mercenaries learn. Andrion's expression was a mix of shock and astonishment. Regaining his composure, he hurriedly asked, what do you really mean? Bu immediately replied, let me show you directly, it will be faster. After finishing, he created a mana circle and looked closely. He was then wide-eyed in amazement. Does the mana take the shape of a ring? Then, in the next moment, he threw the ring at me, and as soon as I touched it, it shattered Andrion's magic. Bell also explained that Simana has the property of breaking the sword aura of the mana heart, and is much easier and more stable than the mana heart itself, even stating that the Li clan and other stubborn groups clinging to the mana heart had already completely fallen apart 100 years ago. Now no one tries to use the mana heart anymore. Andrion was then staring intently at the book. The times have truly changed. He quickly went through each piece of information. The mage uses a circle to draw a circle, while the knight weaves chains to gather mana. The knight's rank is divided based on the number of chains woven. 1 link, 2 links, 3 links, 4 links, and 5 links. Hearing this, Andrion immediately judged, I don't think it's entirely useless trash either. Suddenly, he muttered a name. Anqing. Anqing? It feels like I've heard that name somewhere before. Soon, Andrion remembered an old memory and began to recall a long time ago. At this point, Ernest spoke up. Are you the famous sword saint? He grabbed him and declared, I am Sanchingen, here to see who truly deserves the title of sword saint. The details are still clear in Andrion's memory. All once, someone came to me using strange dark magic that wasn't swordsmanship or magic. Then he suddenly smiled. No wonder the name sounded familiar, and Andrion felt a bit curious. So what happened to that guy in the end, I wonder? The next morning, as a new day began as usual, Andrion was out on the field warming up, like always. At this moment, Beu suddenly asked, "Did you read that book last night?" He then said as he walked away, "You probably now realize how foolish your choice was." However, Andrion simply shrugged and calmly replied, "I don't feel I was wrong even a little bit." Seeing that, he sighed and asked, "Do you refuse to admit it, or do you still not understand the situation?" Instead, Andrion confidently shows off Manaza. "Not every Mana's heart is the same. I confidently claim that difference in rank. Have you ever heard of it?" Still, Beu looks down on you, and I wonder what nonsense you're spouting. Then he tells you a story. Sometimes among mercenaries, there are those like you who imagine themselves as some hero from centuries ago. Do you know what happened to them? Beu emphasized their fate. Everyone falling down, not even passing 2 circles. He also provoked him, saying, "If you are different from us, try defeating a 2-sword knight." Andrion calmly replied, "Do you think having him as my guardian is a good thing for me? I'm not so sure about that." Suddenly, the atmosphere between us turned cold, and after a moment of silence, Beu asked, "Did you just doubt my eligibility as your guardian?" Along with that, he unleashed his majesty. "I am a count of the kingdom and the commander-in-chief of the Northern Army." Immediately, Beu stomped his foot fiercely, the owner of the Black Lance Cavalry and one of the 5 Silver Lion servants of the Emperor. The aura around him instantly erupted as he wove 4 circles, and Beu's eyes also shone brightly. A Crimson Knight next to him raises his voice to threaten V. That is the name of the man who might be standing behind you. Does Andrion here seem to be pushed back enough to be qualified? At the same time, the Royal Knight began to attack. The sword was drawn decisively, quickly surrounding Beu, who simply responded with a smug expression. Meanwhile, Andrion also smirked and said, "Don't you dare to take back your words later." A moment later, he was so exhausted that he collapsed to the ground. That's enough for today. Andrion can finally rest after finishing the training. However, he was still trembling, almost dying. Suddenly, Andrion remembered Beu. DM challenged me, thinking he would gain my recognition with that guts. "Second X, can you defeat First X? That's already lucky enough." As he thought to himself, he muttered, "That damn bastard, like a demon." Suddenly, someone greeted him when he returned to his room. "Your Highness, I have been waiting for you all this time," the royal physician quickly responded. "I am very grateful that you still remember this humble servant." Instead, he looked at him in confusion and asked why the royal physician was here. The physician quickly explained that the queen had ordered him to use magic healing on him. After finishing, he gently beckoned him. "Come on, Your Highness, this way." But Andrion immediately objected. No, he didn't hesitate to chase him away. "I don't need it, just get out of here." Then Andrion cursed, as if he wanted to make all the hell I went through today explode. C, standing beside him, looked at him with hesitation. A few days later, today was still a clear day, but Jillian stormed in aggressively. "Brother King, are you here too?" As soon as we met, he already showed his arrogance. Andrion, who was having a meal, had to pause and finish the bite in his mouth. He wondered again, who could that be? At this moment, C reminded everyone that he was the 3rd prince. Andrion was quite surprised to hear this. "Is that the crown prince?" As for Jillian, he casually added, "I heard you had an accident, but you seem to be doing better than I thought." "It's a pity," he replied indifferently. "What do you want to say? Are you here just to cause trouble? Being a prince must keep you pretty busy, huh?" This made him grimace. What right does a guy who stabbed himself have to talk? "But let's put that aside for now," Julian said casually. "I heard some interesting news." His tone gradually became sarcastic. "I heard you bet with Count Banlo H about fighting a 2-sword knight." And Jillian sneered at the same time. Regarding that, without hesitation, Jillian suggested, "What if your opponent is me?" After that challenge, Andrion simply nodded and accepted it. Still, he remained quite annoyed. What exactly is that guy? Why are all the descendants of the Leon Bach family like that? At this point, C once again explained, Prince John has been famous for his swordsmanship since he was young. He was surprised and asked back, "What do you mean? That kid?" In response to that question, C then explained she was able to weave 2 circles at just 14 years old, which is truly very impressive. Andrion exclaimed, "Is that true?" Suddenly, a servant hurriedly reported, "Your Highness, I apologize for interrupting." But she brought a stack of letters and said, "There are some messages for you." Andrion's eyes immediately turned suspicious. Letter Tiger. Why have those people never paid attention to this body before? But now, after reading the letter, his eyes narrowed slightly. Andrion continued to remain silent, causing their curiosity to grow, while he calmly read the words in the letter apologizing for the previous incident. "Your Highness, I humbly request a duel. If you are still having trouble finding an opponent, please give me the chance first." So Andrion quickly concluded that this was the chance to legally beat up that bastard. So that's what they mean? My anger is boiling over. It seems we've become an easy target, haven't we? Then Andrion immediately called out. She quickly responded, yes. At this moment, he angrily demands that those who just sent these letters be dealt with. Write down all their names for me after that meal. Today, Bayu suddenly threw out a sword, and Andrion looked at him with confusion. Bayu also gets straight to the point. Pick up the sword. Next, he explained that you need to know a little swordsmanship for the betting to be meaningful, right?
I don't want to hear excuses that you lost because you weren't taught the basics.
Seeing that, he picked up his sword while thinking that just handing it over properly would be enough. He's really peculiar. At that moment, Andrion suddenly shivered, his whole body trembling from the intense muscle pain. And Bayu quickly realized, wait a moment.
He held you back and asked, do you not want to receive healing magic?
And Andrion replied in surprise, as a knight you should know that. He calmly pointed out the issue, saying that healing magic only restores the muscles to their original state, not helping them. Bayu nodded in understanding after hearing this. Yes, then he just returned to his serious demeanor. Anyway, that's not something I intended to say. Today Bayu suddenly drew his sword. I won't do this many times, so watch carefully. He also channels mana into it. This is a technique that the kingdom's knights learn to build their foundation. As the kingdom trains in swordsmanship, the moment the sword movement slows down, at the right moment Bayu widens his eyes and each sword stroke is immediately swung out with decisive force. Not finished, he spun around and swung his sword to the left, then changed direction and struck to the right, finally gripping it tightly and raising the sword high. In the final strike, Bayu delivered a wind-cutting slash, blowing away the surrounding dust and smoke along the path of his sword. Did you just say that was the swordsmanship knights learn to build their foundation? With your talent, it might still be a bit too much for you. As he finished speaking, Bayu suddenly heard a laugh. Andrion is here laughing heartily with his face in his hands. No matter how much time passes, he is still reminiscing about the old days, the legendary swordsmanship that once beheaded the furious dragon. How could he believe it was just an ordinary training technique? Meanwhile, Bayu warned that this alone wouldn't be enough to win the bet. But after a moment of honesty, you could beg your mother to hire another teacher, yet he cut him off immediately. No need. Andrion declared firmly that he would not learn any other swordsmanship because this alone was enough. Faced with that determination, Bayu slightly raised an eyebrow. Finally, he just indifferently said, do whatever you want, and so Andrion kept practicing sword swings. At the same time, he was reflecting that the dragon-slaying sword technique is now considered a trivial training method. Andrion looked up with a face covered in sweat, and although he didn't want to admit it, perhaps it was just a natural phenomenon. You yourself have long realized that the Dragon Slayer sword lacks the will to destroy dragons. Then, how can those who have abandoned their mana hearts and forgotten how to infuse their will into a sword ever recognize the true value of a Dragon Slayer? At that moment, Bayu suddenly blocked his sword. This unexpected action stunned Andrion, but he still dedicated himself to guiding him. Strength isn't just about tensing your arm. Have you already forgotten what I taught you? While guiding Bayu, he struck your stomach, then focused his strength on your abdomen, and finally, he forcefully kicked your leg and the other leg as well. That slight pain made him kneel down. Only by using strength properly throughout his body could he wield the sword. Still, he remained focused and attentive. That's right. Andrion quickly stands up.
Although my current body is weak and clumsy, I can't even imitate the fake Long Slayer sword technique properly. With determination, I grip the sword tightly, but I will prove that the Long Slayer sword technique is not just old, discarded scraps like a worn-out pair of shoes.
In the following days, his steps grew stronger. 1 day, 2 days. Today, Andrion still continues to run. 3 days later, after running, he practiced basic sword swings again. A week passed, and he also kept training his mana, and then a month went by. At the moment he was trying, the system suddenly reported progress. Andrion immediately stopped while it kept updating. At the same time, his stance became more refined, his swordsmanship sharper and more agile, and the more Andrion trained, the more excited he became. He unconsciously immerses himself in the sword. Suddenly, more than a month ago, the sound of someone trying to stop him echoed all around. However, Andrion completely ignored it, stronger than yesterday. His eyes at that moment were fixed on the blade. Bayu kept trying to call out to stop, but he kept swinging his sword, better than before. It wasn't until he was shouted at loudly that he finally snapped out of it. Aren't you listening when I told you to stop? His sword shattered and fell everywhere. In the pouring rain, only 3 people remain on the field in Andrion's hands, blood beginning to spread, even dripping into the rainwater. Only then did Andrion look over in confusion at his uncle. Then his gaze unconsciously turned forward, catching Andrion's eye. The wooden stake had been burned to ashes. In the cold rain, the wooden post still emitted steam. Surprised, Andrion froze in place.
Standing nearby, he exclaimed, "Why train on a day like this? If it were real swordsmanship, you wouldn't be alive now."
His scolding made him look back calmly, and only then did Andrion notice his rough, calloused hand. Next, he heard the system notify that the super concentration mode had been activated again, and overwhelmed with emotion, Andrion suddenly laughed, but exhaustion immediately took over. "Focus 2 more times, and I'll probably get struck by lightning." Seeing him faint, they hurried over. The prince changed his mind. Bel is looking at Andrion with a suspicious expression, and even though he has fainted, he still mutters at the foolish kid. Time passes quickly, and after a moment, Andrion opened his eyes. As soon as he regained consciousness, he hurriedly sat up. "Did I just faint?" He sighed quietly in frustration. "I don't know the limits of this body. As a sword, I have achieved all the accomplishments possible in this world. An anonymous war hero, a sword saint, a king of mercenaries, a founding hero, leading battles to victory, elevating both body and spirit.
I have led the way for the heroes. Ruhon, a wise advisor and an excellent teacher, but also in existence, always standing on the sidelines like a third wheel."
Back in the present, Andrion observed his burning hand and remembered that feeling. That's why I wielded my sword until I reached that level, immersed in the sensation of turning sweat, effort, and labor into my own achievement. Andrion's hand gently clenched. "With this body, it won't be long before I collapse. I need to balance my mind and body." With that thought, he quickly closed his eyes. "It's been over a month since I formed my mana heart. I've accumulated quite a bit of mana since then, so I should be moving on to the next stage soon." As I finish speaking, the mana begins to surge. His mana heart now exists clearly, and the flames surrounding it immediately burn brightly, shifting from a pale blue to a deeper, more intense blue. In the next moment, Andrion grabbed the sword himself and held it in his hand, his muscles growing stronger, and even his bones becoming more solid. As the process finished, Andrion quickly opened his eyes, feeling the change clearly and shouting with joy. Done. He immediately glances at the sword to see. Andrion didn't hesitate and took it. When he swung it once, the system immediately promoted him to an apprentice swordsman, sword in hand. Now I feel more confident. With this, I can grasp the basics. That same day, Bayu suddenly brought up a rumor spreading across the kingdom. Andrion looked surprised. A rumor? Right now, Bayu sighed thoughtfully about your bet, and honestly, it's become quite a bother for me too. Then he urged you, wouldn't it be better if you quickly found a rival for a one-on-one duel? He nodded and said, "Oh, is that so?" Andrion quickly returned to his sinister look. "I've already decided who my opponent will be. By the way, you're also scouting. More importantly, it will be very difficult for you to face someone who uses 2 chains right away. Should I fight a few people using the iron chain first?" Bay immediately replied. "That depends on you." Hearing the answer, Andrion turned to the others and asked how things were going with my request. "Yes, Your Highness, I have arranged it as you requested." "This is a list of those who have challenged Your Highness to a duel, and they are somewhat worried. However, Your Highness, are you really planning to fight them?" On the contrary, Andrion calmly asked, "What if I do that?" He also carefully analyzed that most of these disputes involve grudges against the prince, and they might intentionally harm others under the guise of a duel. However, Andrion was not afraid. "I know, right?" That's why he calmly suggested, "Please be the referee for me." My guardian didn't want to cause him trouble. Andrion said, "You don't ask for anything big, just to prevent anyone from dying during the fight. Can you help me with this small favor?" A few days later, on the day of the first match, Taylor arrived and looked around in awe. In front of him stood a magnificent grand tower, the prince's palace, where that scoundrel lived. Then I started to open up. "My name is Taylor Teo-hem, the second son of an ordinary baron family. A few years ago, Andrion once mocked me. Look at that disheveled appearance. Look at Konasanism." He openly insulted them, from their clothes to their attitude, reeking of a country bumpkin. Look at him, excited just because he was invited to the royal banquet, and that made me furious. My father and brother had to endure an irreparable shame from that royal brat. Taylor's eyes immediately darkened, the family honor plunging into the abyss, and my father and brother became the laughingstock of the nobility to this day. Andre lay on Beck, and then he stepped onto the arena with resolve. Today, I will make him pay dearly for that day. The divine sends his regards to His Highness, Crown Prince Andrion Leon Beck. My name is Taylor, the second son of the Teo-hem family. I am an apprentice knight of the first silver and the heir to the family's swordsmanship. But in response, he only shouted, "Oh my, why so formal for a practice match? It's not an official duel." Even Andrion wondered, is he really a knight? He looks so weak.
This time, Taylor also lost his temper. As rumored, he's both rude and arrogant, unaware of his position and lacking basic knowledge.
Just then, Bu stepped in and said, "Enough. He came over and reminded you I understand how you feel, but the match hasn't started yet." He gathered his strength again, and as soon as he saw Bu, his eyes lit up. "Who is this Count Bon LH?" He hurriedly bowed and said, "It's an honor to meet you." He responded politely, "Yes. Very pleased to meet you." Andrion nearby sighed and said, "Sometimes people might think the young master is the prince." Bu calmly reproached him. "You should have behaved better in the past." This remark irritates him a bit, saying, "Good grief, always bringing up the past." Then he steps in to signal. "Both of you go to your positions." The battle begins, and Taylor also hardens his expression while Andrion remains indifferent. In the next moment, his red mana surges powerfully, and he simultaneously curves his lips into a slight smile. "Then, Your Highness." As he raised his voice to warn, Taylor charged forward. "Please be careful." In an instant, he leapt away from his position, with his entire body moving along the sword straight at Andrion. He simply calmly observed that there were too many unnecessary movements. Then Andrion easily blocked the attack. Taylor only then realized it was a mana heart, and before he could regain his composure, he was knocked back by him. He exclaimed in panic, "How can a mana heart block a mana chain?" Meanwhile, he's wondering if it's because he only has a single circle. Andrion begins to channel mana, feeling only a slight tingling sensation. The change in aura surprises him. The soldiers were also stunned. The sound coming from that sword was about Bu, and he quickly recognized it. The sword resonates. In that moment, Taylor suddenly muttered, "Impossible." In a furious manner, he ran to attack. This could not possibly happen. Due to the sudden action, he was a bit startled. But Andrion quickly defended himself, while the opponent, in a frenzy, kept attacking, forcing him to step back, and then the swords clashed powerfully again. The power gap causes Taylor to slip across the arena. At this moment, both of them keep their distance and are both exhausted. Andrion secretly thought that they said the mana circle was incompatible with the heart mana. That statement is indeed correct. As he touched his heart, he sneered and said, "I feel like a mana reflux could happen at any moment." Then he began to speak, "But you say you're the second son of Lord Teo, huh? This time Andrion directly provokes you, so you need to cool down your hot head a bit." After saying that, he quickly closes his eyes and focuses his senses, changing his perspective and pushing Andrion into deep water. Seized this opportunity, he reached out and awakened it. And gradually, Andrion drew closer to the evil dragon. Whether it was a demon sword, a holy sword, or countless other names. The moment he touched it, a flash of light appeared. "A part of my soul." The evil dragon sleeps while glaring, and Andrion gradually merges with it, with the sword's memories from the last activation and the essence of the crafted heart to kill the dragon. With a notification from the system, the heart of the blood dragon beats once, and in a flash, Andrion's eyes turn blazing red. The evil dragon now surrounds him, forged for the purpose of destroying dragons. This is the true power of the Dragon Slayer blade. As for Taylor, the murderous aura from the dragon threatens him, and fear makes him tremble. What exactly is that? Meanwhile, B raised his voice to stop him, but Andrion has lost his reason and rushes forward. Seeing Andrion's appearance, he quickly realizes that the sword is very dangerous. Looking back, he suddenly made a request. "Uncle, I have something to ask before our sparring." Bu immediately looked over. "What is it?" Andrion said casually. "If it looks like you're about to kill your opponent and at the same time Bu touches the sword, then in the blink of an eye, he will be right next to you. So you must stop him." Uncle B immediately pushes Andrion aside, causing him to crash into the stone wall, then continues to stand guard in front of Taylor. As for Andrion, he seems to be unconscious after this blow. However, Bu himself also has a sword pointed at him. The surrounding soldiers immediately questioned, what did the Count do? Depending on the circumstances, you could be charged with royal assassination. But he explained that he was just following my request to step back, and hearing that, she was stunned. "Your Highness, in exchange." Andrion now struggles to wipe the blood from his mouth. "I did ask him, but in the end, he still collapsed. I never said he knocked me out." That made them shout in panic, the satyr's heart gradually softening after the battle. Only then did you breathe a sigh of relief. I thought my mana heart was really going to break. At the same time, Andrion pondered. The power of his uncle was truly different from those nameless ones, and I took that hit head on. With a satisfied smile, he felt relieved that there didn't seem to be any long-term side effects. But it still hurt a lot. Then he shifted to a smug expression. After all, everything was settled, and he had won the fight. At this moment, Bu spoke again. "What are you laughing at?" And Andrion looked over in confusion. Yes, upon seeing him, he asked curiously, "What wind brought you here?" Meanwhile, Bo immediately questioned him, "What exactly did you do?" His tone was sharp. "What kind of evil sword is that? I have never taught you that kind of swordsmanship." But you still answer seriously. "I am simply loyal to the true nature of the sword." This answer made him frown. "Do you dare to talk about the true nature of the sword without ever experiencing real combat?" But Biu gradually relaxed, and to him, the true nature of the sword was simply deadly intent. No matter how brutal and uncomfortable it may be, it is still the truth. This time, Andrion suddenly pouted and said, "That's surprising." He casually sneered and said, "I thought you would explain that the way of the sword is the perfection of the sword itself or something like that, then go on and on." Meanwhile, B outright declared that I am a soldier, not a knight. I walk the path of victory rather than the path of righteousness. Immediately afterward, he continued speaking, but Beonkiem warned, "Your sword has gone too far. If your killing intent is too strong, you won't be able to distinguish friend from foe." Seeing that, he deliberately avoided eye contact. "So that's why the one making a fuss about everything is you, right? To fix it," he also declared, "I will watch over you and see whether the demon inside you will swallow you whole or not." And after the 3 days of training ended, the sword suddenly struck the ground loudly. Andrion suddenly spoke. "You say you're Taylor Teo Hem, right? You did a great job over the past 3 days." In his heart, Andrion thought he had to block the relentless, murderous sword strikes that had been pouring out for 3 days. He truly had endured a lot. "You keep guessing. But it's a pity, really. You would have felt better if you had at least beaten me once. But you couldn't." Taylor hesitated on this side. And before he could respond, Andrion called someone to bring that over. With the lady's instrument in hand, Taylor was caught off guard. "Your Highness, what is this? I heard I have done some terrible things to you in the past. I don't know if this will make up for it." Andrion added a message. "But bring this back to the Count as well. It's not much, just some gold and a letter." Finished, he casually left right away. "Now go. Safe journey." Andrion firmly believed that he was not obliged to clean up the mess caused by that bastard. But at this moment, Taylor suddenly said, "Thank you, Your Highness, and you keep convincing yourself, after all, if you make someone do something, they should be paid fairly." As a result, the prince's training match became a hot topic of discussion throughout the kingdom. His arrogance has dug his own grave. Many people are discussing eagerly, and the crown prince will surely pay a heavy price for his past mistakes, but I wonder how much humiliation he will have to endure. However, after waiting for many days, the news everyone was hoping for still didn't arrive, and when questioned, Taylor was quite surprised. "Are you asking how the match went?" Along with you, many excitedly recount it seems there has been some misunderstanding here. The crown prince is not as terrible as the rumors say. Both sides did their best in the match, that's all. Threaten? I simply understood the prince's feelings, and that surprised most people. What is going on? The royal family must have silenced them. Only Andrion was furious, pounding the table, and when those involved heard this news, they shut the monkey's mouth, and he snapped in frustration. "They're only keeping quiet out of shame for losing to me." I even muttered, "These nobles are truly bored and reckless. They should have done something more useful with their time instead of this." Bayu nearby deliberately mocking. "You think you have the right to say that?" Andrion couldn't care less about him, and immediately looked at his opponent. "This time you carefully threatened. When you go out, remember to spread the match result as well." "Got it?" He quickly nodded after hearing that. "The gods will do that." Thanks to which, he is somewhat satisfied. So now the rumors must have died down, right? But not long after, Andrion received shocking news. There are rumors that His Highness threatened him to falsify the match result. At that moment, he didn't even speak, all his anger turning into the will to train. Forget it, let's just keep training." Andrion immediately delivers a precise strike. Not stopping there, he swiftly follows up with another attack. Then he turned around, gripping his weapon tightly, pouring his strength into the blade as he swung it down. And even though it was over, the mana around it burned fiercely. Andrion's heart still hadn't fully stopped. After some thought, he suddenly asked, "How many opponents are left to challenge?" They quickly replied, "The person coming today is the last one." Andrion, feeling bored, shook his head. "Those apprentice knights are no longer a match for me." As for C, he added more information. "But this last person is a knight who has been trained in swordsmanship." Additionally, Khan emphasizes that it is not just about honing inherited swordsmanship, but about a talented individual who joined the knight order to train. His expression briefly brightened, an apprentice knight of the Lion Cavalry. At this moment, Awen has also just arrived. "Awen, right?" The gatekeeper couldn't help but gossip. "It's her, isn't it? Look at the lion crest on her armor. It must be her." Along with that, they are passing around rumors. A flower on the cliff, a thorny rose, someone who has shattered the hearts of many boys. On this side, she continues to walk gracefully and slowly. The soldiers continued to marvel. She truly is a stunning beauty. Who would have thought someone like her would come here alone? Suddenly, they said something that made her stop. In a way, the prince might also have talent. Aen's gaze briefly turned cold, and her serious demeanor was clearly visible despite her judgment.
Wouldn't it be ridiculous if the prince was embarrassed by that woman? The Steel Lion Knights are renowned as one of the top knight orders in the kingdom, both in reputation and skill. Apprentice Knight Acheron of this group is a promising talent and has been confirmed to become a full member. The more I think about Andreon, the harder it is to believe. Why would such a genius come to challenge me? I hesitated for a moment. Well, there was a small misunderstanding between His Highness and Lord Awen before. However, I uncovered what misunderstanding there was on my own. Knowing my personality, I probably initiated the conflict unilaterally. So he directly asked Adelia, "Are you over there? And tell me what you think." What did I do back then? At Andreon's request, she hesitated before answering. Well, Your Highness, and the next words are what truly shocked me.
It was the person who harassed Lord Awen. Andreon immediately clutched his head and shouted, "This crazy bastard," suddenly touching Awen during Andreon's flashback. Then he called out to her, "Is your name Awen? You really are as beautiful as they say. What do you think? If you want, you can come serve as my lady-in-waiting." But she immediately brushed him off, and Awen firmly declared, "Your Highness, knights are not your personal property." After hearing this story, he was completely speechless. "That's what I overheard from the servant." Then Andreon slowly looked up, sounding like the sickly flattery of a rotten scoundrel. Awen was standing there in front of him, because there's no way anyone could look at her and call her ugly. She was indifferent, but still beautiful in her own way. Soon after, Awen took the initiative to speak. "Long time no see. Your Highness, you haven't changed at all." In response, he stammered, "I don't think so. I have changed a lot. You know? The person inside has become completely different." However, her gaze remained sharp. "That's right. This is my karma." At this moment, Adelia brought them the news that Count Banner Hat had arrived. As he passed by, Awen suddenly paused for a few seconds. "I am Awen, and I am introducing myself as a trainee knight of the Steel Lion Knights. Awen Gin, greetings to Count Banner Hat." After hearing that, he then advised, "Be careful, the prince's swordsmanship is quite deadly." Seeing that, he quickly complained, "Hey, where did the impartial observer's neutrality go?" On the contrary, Bayu seemed indifferent and continued speaking. All right, with his command, Andreon returned to his excited stance. Awen also straightened her face. Both of them took their positions. Bayu remains in the same position and makes the announcement. "From this moment on, the duel begins." As soon as the words finished, she quickly grabbed her sword, and seeing this, Andreon looked very eager. Let's see how the Lion Seed's talent measures up. As such, he lets Awen attack first, every move carefully observed by him. As expected, the movement was quite skillful. With the first strike, Andreon simply blocked it, but he was suddenly struck with pain. Mana is starting to flow backwards. Awen then furrows her brow behind the two swords, applying more force to easily throw Andreon off. Then came a series of overwhelming, relentless strikes. Meanwhile, Andreon gradually felt himself completely caught up in her style of fighting. "No, I can't let this happen." At that moment, Awen charged like a beast, and he quickly activated the heart of the Shadow Dragon. That unusual aura of killing intent inadvertently distracted her, and once again the sound of swords clashing echoed. The difference is that Awen retreated on her own. She landed gracefully and skillfully. Then Awen, catching her breath, was surprised. Her sword. As for Andreon, he was satisfied to say that not all chains are the same. She truly is on a different level compared to the little minnows. Seizing the opportunity, he suddenly activates Judgment, but all of Awen's stats immediately appear before Andreon. After reading, he quickly regains his composure. The fact that we can see this information is due to limited power. The next second, Andreon suddenly grinned mischievously. Along with him, Awen also heightened her vigilance, meaning she is weaker or has comparable strength to me. In an instant, he dashed forward at full speed, and Andreon's opponent responded in kind. As they collided, he declared war on her. The real battle begins now, and gradually, the fight leaves Andreon battered and exhausted. Awen is no better, panting heavily as the sky around them has already turned to dusk. At this moment, Bu raises his sword, signaling the end of the match. Then he makes a request. "Let's stop here for today. We will continue the fight tomorrow." Andreon clicked his tongue. I was just about to end it. Coincidentally, I was about to do the same thing. As usual, he provoked her immediately, saying, "So do you want to keep fighting?" And Awen didn't hesitate, replying, "If you want, I can go on for as long as you like." But Bu once again intervened, saying enough. He looked at the royal doctor and said, "It's already late. Both of you should go for treatment now." According to that, the royal doctor eagerly approached him. "Your Highness, let me treat you now." While being healed, Andrion's gaze was fixed on her, saying, "Oh my, this part is also bruised." He didn't bother to hide it, directly observing Awen. Realizing this, she glanced at him, but both of them chose to ignore each other and pass by. At the same time, they shared the same thought. We will never lose. In the days that followed, the soldiers began to grow restless, and no one could determine who was winning or losing. "Is it the third day already?" The person next to him is marveling. "Honestly, I'm quite surprised," he whispered softly. "I've heard a lot about Awen's skills, but the skills of the Crown Prince are also quite impressive." In the end, they turned their attention to the training ground. "I hope we will have a result today." At that moment, Andrion suddenly suggested that before our next match, there was something he wanted to say. Awen immediately guessed. "Don't tell me you're about to apologize now." She quickly said sternly, "The gods will not accept your apology." In exchange, Andrion simply nodded. "I understand you want to regain your damaged pride through your own strength, and that is a commendable thought, But then he just shrugged, "No, that's not it." Then he casually smiled, because with us fighting so fiercely, shouldn't there be a reward? The next words immediately stunned them all. The loser must grant a wish to the winner. See, if I say kneel, then kneel. If I say bow and apologize, then do it. For Awen, Lady Trantru could not respond immediately. The other soldiers exclaimed, "Prince, as a member of the royal family, how could you say such words? Please take back what you said." Andrion also quickly dismissed it. "Outsiders should not interfere. Why are there so many spectators? I wonder?" Then he turned to ask her, "What do you think, Awen?" Quickly, she carefully gave her answer. "Even though I am just a humble squire, I am still a member of the Knight Order loyal to the Leonbeck royal family. I dare not commit such an act of disrespect against His Highness." Awen's attitude quickly changed. "However, if His Highness permits it, perhaps I also have the right to claim a reward from the bet." This reaction pleased Andrion. He's quite clever. In the next moment, they charged at each other wildly, and you better not break your promise later. This time, Andrion decisively attacked, and the sound of swords clashing became deafening. Awen was not outmatched as she launched a wide attack, suddenly finding an opening, his eyes flickering with a fiery red. Without waiting for her to recover, Andrion suddenly lunged down with a strike. At that moment, Awen was stunned. Too fast, he wasn't this quick yesterday. But in her eyes, he now looks very crazy. Could it be that he has hidden his true strength? Gradually, the tide turned and pushed her back. Awen's slight mistake nearly let the sword sweep past, and once some distance was created, the arena descended into chaos. Awen couldn't keep up and was overwhelmed, while Andrion charged forward with murderous intent. Both of them swung their swords at the same time to attack and block. In the end, one sword was pushed away. Awen collapsed in helplessness, her weapon shattered in two. The soldiers in the training yard were even more stunned, and even Byo looked shocked and speechless. Meanwhile, still stunned, she couldn't believe that Andrion's shadow had stepped in front of Awen. "I win the bet." At this moment, he pointed his sword at her and said, "Awen Chenta." Andrion's lips couldn't help but curl up. Then he directly requested to have you, while C was confiding about the royal guard position to the crown prince. "The infamous scoundrel of the kingdom contradicts my worries. The job isn't that difficult." When they first met, Andrion asked, "Are you the new royal guard?" He then carefully bowed his head and said, "Yes, I look forward to serving you." "Your Highness?" C secretly thinks that the prince seems a bit arrogant, but he simply coldly replies, "All right, I rely on you," while he judges that he does not actually lose his temper or act violently without reason, as the rumors suggest. Day by day, C focused on observing, and the more he watched, the more he pondered. No, in fact, it was completely the opposite of what the rumors said. On that very day, Andrion still swung his sword in the pouring rain. At this point, others began to worry, should we stop the prince? Koi Vang suddenly shouted, "Prince, watch out!" No sooner had the words left his mouth than a lightning bolt struck from the sky. However, Andrion looked incredibly satisfied. Seeing that emotion, he was utterly stunned. Deep inside, C instinctively believed that His Highness would become a great person. Gradually, the memories returned to the present, and that was what she had thought. Andrion then declared, "I want you." At first, the soldiers were all stunned, truly embarrassing. On this side, C begins to suspect, have I misunderstood him all along? As for Awen, she gradually stands up. Are you questioning him with an angry tone? Is that really what His Highness desires? Andrion replied calmly, "Of course, with your current state, You're just an ordinary trainee knight who can't even defeat a worthless prince. At this point, he once again curled his lips. So what I want is for Andrion to unhesitatingly speak of the potential and future of the knight named Awanergan. In addition, he also seriously stated that I need a knight to follow me, not a knight to protect me under royal orders. Hearing this, I suddenly flinched while he continued explaining, it's a knight who belongs only to me and follows my own judgment. Andrion looked back at the information board and commented, "You have quite a talent for swordsmanship." His tone grew more sincere, so Aker Gayen. Andrion repeated the proposal, "Become my knight." Instead, she suddenly reminisced about the past. I became the knight I always dreamed of, but then she overheard some gossip. Is that the child? They all shared the same thought. Just as the rumor said, she has an extremely striking appearance, and this made Awen feel angry. No one considered me a knight, so I worked twice as hard as everyone else. I easily defeated my opponents in every battle. Then came the familiar announcement. Winner, Awen Kayen. Still, Awen didn't stop. Even after defeating all the other apprentices, she kept swinging her sword to dominate her target. Awen kept repeating that cycle and showing those results. In the end, everyone agreed that Awen is our representative. Protecting a beauty like her is an honor for a knight. Hearing that, even she gradually gave up on herself, believing she could never become a knight.
Returning to the present, Awen's body trembled, but she looked directly at Andrion with disbelief.
He wants her potential and future as a knight. Is he truly sincere, or is she just doubting herself? But quickly, Awen spoke up and said, "Please promise me one thing." She proposed slowly, "Please treat the god not as a woman, but as a knight." Furthermore, Awen was also somewhat cautious. If you could do that, the goddess would follow the prince's wishes. Andrion simply looked into her eyes in silence, and she did not avoid his gaze but waited for his response.
Yes.
And finally, he quickly nodded. "All right, I promise." Receiving his answer, Awen gently stepped back and, under the sunset, knelt before Andre. At the same time, Awen made a vow as the eldest daughter of the Kigayan family, swearing loyalty to Prince Andrion Leon Beck. In front of everyone, she continued and dedicated her sword and the rest of her life to the prince, while B heard everything but remained silent. Meanwhile, Andrion drew his sword as the legitimate heir of Leon Beck. "In the name of Andrion Leon Beck, I knight you." Awen bows her head to receive his instructions. "Be brave. Be courteous under the crimson sky." He emphasizes the last words and stay loyal. As time passes, Awen returns to diligent training. Some other soldiers begin to gossip.
Swearing loyalty to that bastard? That's just ridiculous.
And it's a vow based on a bet. We need to cancel it somehow. The other person just shrugged. But I heard she refused our help, and then the information suddenly became even more distorted. Oh my God, from what I hear, isn't there some shady smell? Could there be some connection to the prince? Maybe he couldn't openly take her as a mistress for fear of reputation, so he used the knight's oath to cover it up. It was strange from the start. Why would she attend a shady match organized by that scumbag? When the news reached Andrion, he shouted, "What the hell am I, some kind of villain?" He was so furious he trembled. "I'm really the worst scumbag in the world, huh?" C stands quietly beside, then softly calls out, "Your Highness." C immediately got to the point about what was said that day, but he didn't quite understand when. Seeing that, he then prompted, "A few days before the final battle, Andrion suddenly remembered after hearing it. Wasn't a knight supposed to protect me, according to the royal decree?" "That?" he quickly explained. "Does that bother you? It's the truth. If now there was a royal order for you to go somewhere else, wouldn't you go?" Then Andrion started teasing. If you want, you can also carry out the promise later, but in other aspects he hesitates to express his intentions. If the god says that he will fulfill the promise, do you accept it? But he immediately shook his head no, and Andrion also frankly said, "I don't want you to keep you around. There's nothing interesting about that." And they all burst out laughing. Really? Instead, Andrion thought to himself, "I'm not joking, I'm serious." Later, he held a notice in his hand. What have I done? Even Andrion was confused, surprised that they lifted the house arrest a month and a half earlier. He briefly remembered that angry look, after acting as if they would lock me in the prince's palace and never see me again. Then he shook his head. I no longer understand what that man is thinking. "So, are you curious and unhappy that the curfew has been lifted, Your Highness?" Andrion calmly replied, "I don't really care. Even if I leave the palace, I have nowhere to go and no one to meet, because I don't know anyone." As for Adelia, she suddenly froze in shock. Then she nervously reported, "Lord, I'm sorry, I just saw an invitation sent to His Highness." Adelia's attitude made him quite cautious. A wedding invitation? She hurriedly handed the letter to his Yes, this one. Is it a special social club for young nobles? Adelia explained. It's a social gathering that His Highness used to attend. This time he finally showed surprise. I see. Then he wondered if it was a strange place. When asked this, she hesitated, and Adelia, uncertain, explained that for a goddess-like woman, the refined tastes of the young nobles were beyond her understanding. Instead, I decisively pushed it aside, so it was just drinking parties and women. Forget it, I've been busy enough with training. Why should I bother with such a pointless gathering? Suddenly, Andrion's eyes catch something on the other side of the letter, a message from Lee that he treasures. Then he gradually reveals his concern. Lee immediately recalled the information. It's a name I remember. According to my stepfather, they are a family that relentlessly pursued Mana's heart and ultimately faded away 100 years ago. In the end, Andrion made a different decision. Maybe I should attend. Adelia quickly accepted and said, I understand. The goddess will prepare the outfit for you. As for Andrion, he silently hoped that the family hadn't fallen completely. 4 months had passed since he possessed the vile crown prince and started his weight loss training, and the tailor excitedly asked, Your Highness, are you satisfied with the outfit? The god did not miss any of your instructions. He proudly introduced every detail, with the color being black. As he looked at the new boots, he said they had a minimalist design. The way he looked made the tailor very pleased, and the design was simple. However, your Majesty's dignity remains majestic as always. Your Highness? Andrion nodded as he looked on. I really have lost a lot of weight. He exclaimed urgently that your measurements have decreased by more than half. At this point, he casually told me he would give the entire outfit to the Dark Knight Palace for you, and the tailor's eyes immediately lit up. So I will start right away. However, Andrion suddenly smiled. No, wait a little longer. My measurements will change again by then. Then he headed to the party. A few days after the curfew was lifted, I was on my way to that damned social club for the privileged young masters, where they continued to act as knights and oversee his protection. In the carriage, Andrion unconsciously yawned deeply, feeling that being a prince was truly a tiring position, and his mood wasn't much better. Clothes, the carriage, guards, everything felt suffocating and irritating. Suddenly, Andrion's attention shifted elsewhere, and across from him, Adelia jumped in fear as she was pointed out. An just looked at her neck and asked, What's that scar? She quickly apologized after hearing it. That is due to the incompetence of the gods. Your Highness, it is because of the fault you placed on the gods. Meanwhile, Andrion was beginning to regret once again. Why does digging deeper into this body's past reveal so many horrifying stories? Seeing Adelia trembling, he suddenly became curious. Come to think of it, I've been with that maid for months and still don't know her name. Then Andrion took the initiative to speak. What is your name? And Adelia responded accordingly. God is Adelia Bayan, Your Highness. His face immediately turned to shock. Bayan. Meanwhile, she whispered softly, That is a family almost unlisted among the nobility, but Andrion thinks very differently. I never expected to hear that name again in a place like this. Amidst my countless distant memories from the past, when even the city-states didn't exist, let alone the kingdoms among countless races on the continent. That was an era when fragile humans were plundered and slaughtered as if it were natural. Some people brought that miserable history to an end. At the end of the Great War, for the saviors who helped humanity rise to become the dominant race on the continent, they were bestowed the title of the 5 Great Chosen Lords. Amidst the moment when the glorious figure with the flowing red cloak appeared, one of those 5 heroes. Ednis also smiled at him. Ruhan took him in her hands and calmly asked, Have you ever thought about that? In front of them, countless monsters are rushing in, and about what you and I will do after this battle ends. However, Ednis's gaze is unwavering. In the blink of an eye, she vanished at incredible speed. Ednis charged straight at the leader, directly confronting it. And then she achieved a miracle by beheading the king of giants, ending the long era of exploitation. He even tore it apart with precise sword strikes. With those memories, he called her name once more, the blood-steel sword of the north. Instead, suddenly a growl echoed around her, and soon the giant surrounded her. Creatures like these, with their blazing mana, made her eyes turn fierce. Then she kept cursing, crawling back as if expecting something to eat. You bastards, all you think about are trivial things. Filled with hatred, she defeated another one. With bodies like yours, yet her tone grew even sharper, only choosing to do what the others did. Someone like you should be left behind. At that moment, Gruen was so frightened he broke out in a sweat, quickly covering his ears in the present. Just thinking about it already taints my ears. Gradually, Andrion finally looked up. After all, he is a descendant of Bayan. He stared intently at Adelia, wondering what had happened to cause this situation. Just then, C announced, Your Highness, we have arrived. Usually, he would open the door and wait right outside. Your Highness? Andrion sighed and stepped out. Perfect timing. After taking a few steps, he suddenly stopped without hesitation and pointed at Adelia, saying, Adelia, let's talk later. And so, Andrion left the two people in confusion. Meanwhile, as soon as he arrived, Bernardo greeted him warmly. Your Highness, he also bowed respectfully. Have you been well all this time? Bernardo of the Lee family greets Crown Prince Andrion Leon Beck, then smiles brightly, unable to hide his joy at seeing him safe and sound. He here seems suspicious again. Is this guy a descendant of the Lee family? Looks like an idiot. But soon, Andrion was stunned. He must have endured a lot to become so thin. With the same thought in mind, he let out a faint, cold sigh inwardly, while Bernardo was quite confused. Your Highness, is something the matter? Are you still feeling unwell? Andrion immediately denied it. No, it's nothing. I just think it's good that I came here. Next, he pats the other person's shoulder and says that today will be very interesting. With that, Andrion, in a very good mood, turns and walks away. Soon, unpleasant words reached his ears, and then that girl lifted her skirt high, as if she had never known shame. There's also a scoundrel nearby. That girl really does have smooth skin. The young girl shyly said, Oh, stop teasing me, I really hate it. In that atmosphere, only the two of them sat still. Bernardo only now finds it strange. Usually this scum is already completely drunk and out flirting everywhere. He carefully assesses him. His aura feels completely different from before. As he finishes, someone nearby suddenly stumbles up, and due to his drunkenness, he casually speaks. I hear that your Highness, his tone is somewhat sarcastic. You have plucked the flower of the steel lion, and the rumors are spreading everywhere. Andrion merely glanced coldly, while a few others quickly stepped in. I was a step too late. The deity has also been watching that woman for quite some time. If they had known this would happen, they should have taken her oath beforehand. He then smiled in a twisted way, thinking just looking at her in armor was enough to be beautiful, not knowing how amazing her body beneath the armor might be. Suddenly he asked, Hey, do you have any siblings at home? That guy immediately froze in surprise. Yes. Then he replied normally, Do you have any siblings at home? He chuckled softly in relief after hearing that, and before the other person could understand, he suddenly threw a punch straight at him. What? Andrion suddenly struck him hard, leaving him stunned. That unlucky guy immediately fell backward, his cheeks swelling red, causing the glass on the table to shatter and the floor to be soaked. At that moment, the nobles all turned pale. Even Bernardo was stunned in shock. As for Andrion, he cheerfully continued, relieved that your lineage would not be wiped out. Then he kicked him in the groin, and a scream of agony echoed throughout the room. Andrion directly declared, Your brother will be the heir from now on. Then he continued to throw punches. This time he also aimed for his face to beat him up. Seeing this, the onlookers were completely stunned. As for Bernardo, he shifted from shock to horror. Andrion on this side grabbed his collar and pulled him back. Before he could take another hit, he quickly exclaimed, Fish, why did you do that? Your Highness, before I answer that question, listen carefully. Andrion glared fiercely, trying to intimidate him. I can tolerate you thinking I am a scum, but I cannot tolerate you treating me like one. Meanwhile, he started to get angry and said, So you need to be beaten a little more. This strike made him slide far across the floor, and the atmosphere immediately grew tense, as everyone was afraid. When Andrion approached, the nobleman was already unconscious. Seeing that, he called out and quickly knelt down. Yes, your Highness. With a delighted expression, he laughed and joked with Bernardo. Didn't I say earlier that today would be very interesting? This scene made him tremble with fear. Why on earth is this crazy guy acting like that all of a sudden? Then he suddenly demanded to call the royal knights here. He rushed off immediately after hearing that. The temple mage requests a warrant. As Bernardo leaves, the tension in the room continues. Andrion glanced around and stopped at a spot. He immediately ordered, The girls over there, leave this place. At the same time, someone was watching him cautiously, thinking he didn't notice, so he started to retreat. But Andrion immediately saw through it, saying, I mean the girls, and you haven't forgotten to threaten either. If you want to leave, go ahead. But if you do, you will leave as women. Remember what you did earlier. They quickly froze in place, and seeing that everyone had obediently stopped, Andrion slowly stepped forward. Your tone is gentle as if telling a story. None of you are willing to kneel properly before a prince, nor do you show any respect. He subtly reminded them that they mocked me right in front of my face. At this point, he glared and insulted my knight. Nevertheless, Andrion deliberately asked, What crime could be committed in this case? Knight Bernardo immediately responded, Since they have insulted the royal family, that constitutes treason. The nobleman's face immediately turned pale. As for C, he continued explaining. And moreover, since they challenged the authority of the royal family, it was also considered treason. Then he stood seriously beside Andrion and asked, "Your Highness, who should we make kneel?" "All of them." After that party, the emperor directly questioned him. "You caused a major incident right after the ban was lifted." He immediately recounted everything. The 14 noble children were taken into custody. When the Famthuang army rebelled, you falsely accused them of every crime you could find. Finally, he asked sternly, "Do you realize what you've done?" Right now, the emperor is very angry because you have used the royal authority and they must be punished severely. But with the 14 related families, we can't just ignore their fierce opposition. Understanding this, he calmly asks, "Is father worried about the opposition?" Andrion casually explained, "They are those who are discarded even within their own family. They are hopeless scum who only tarnish the family's reputation if kept around." Then he suggests a solution, sending a letter. The emperor, after hearing this, immediately questions, "A letter to whom?" "I won't beat around the bush. Father, just ask since you already know. Aren't there people who can handle gossip within each family better than anyone else?" Andrion smiled as if it were obvious. "The siblings of those scoundrels who were captured." After saying that, he deliberately scrutinized the emperor. "Are you saying he was wrong?" In the end, he had to give the order. "Step back, this makes him very pleased. Obeying the order, see? There's nothing to say, right?" When he returned, Andrion tried to appear harmless. "Come on, you don't need to be so tense, I won't hurt you." Adelia trembled on this side. "Your Highness, what exactly did this humble maid do wrong?" This reaction unconsciously makes him uneasy. This scoundrel must have mistreated her quite a lot. Andrion remembered what was said before, that it was a family struggling just to be listed among the nobility. He quickly concluded that even direct descendants knew nothing about Bayan. The history of glory has been erased, and his unmatched skills have been lost to time. Hearing this, Andrion felt a bit indignant, with a reputation that echoes loudly and a pride that soars high. At this moment, he was using judgment to examine Adelia. Everything had disappeared without a trace. However, in the next second, he had to startle. "Wait a moment, what I see in front of Andrion is the power of a berserk warrior. What are all these traits?" The frantic look flashes by in an instant, and at the same time, opposite to it, Adelia only has the trait of a fragile heart. Andrion was then stunned in shock. She possesses unmatched talent but lacks any trait to control her madness, and then he gazes at her with a blank look. Is it okay to let that madness out into the world? With that thought, he proactively kept his distance from Adelia. Andrion quickly made up his mind. "I have to try." He had already planned it in his mind. After all, it was an S-rank ability. Luckily, there was also a trait he could exploit. The skill you want to use is called Servant, which has the trait of feeling extreme happiness from the existence of its master, whom it serves wholeheartedly. So it immediately exclaimed, "Adelia Bayan, swear loyalty to me." In return, she was very surprised. "Yes, what do you mean by that?" "However, he still firmly told me to have you become my knight right here and now, as expected." She quickly knelt down. "Your Highness, this is not a task that this humble servant girl can undertake. You said your family is insignificant. I will take responsibility for your family." Andrion's tone then became serious. "In exchange, you must swear loyalty to me and serve me as your master." After saying that, he immediately watched her expression. "If you cannot control your madness yourself, I will take the reins for you." As for Adelia, she nervously asked, "Do you really mean to take responsibility for the divine family?" He quickly replied yes, and then Andrion confirmed, "If you want, I will summon them to the capital so you can meet any time." And this time she looked very happy. "I will serve you and dedicate my life to you." Then Adelia quickly bowed her head. Adelia, the eldest daughter of the Bayan family, pledges her loyalty to His Highness the Crown Prince Andrion Leon Beck. He silently looked at her, "And I will serve my master and dedicate my whole life to you." Wait for her to finish. Then he reached out his hand. "Good." Andrion directly declares, "From now on, you will obey my orders unconditionally." She immediately responds, requesting the order. At that moment, Adelia gradually revealed an unusual excitement. That reaction made him quite confused. Is this really the right choice? Since adopting Adelia as her personal lady, rumors about Andrion have been spreading more and more. It is said that the Crown Prince has been unusually quiet lately and has started acting like a thug, not only using despicable methods to force loyal knights into submission, but also making noble children fight and imprisoning them. Now I hear he even knighted a maid who has never held a sword as his personal knight, clearly aiming to build a harem under the guise of a knightly order. His face darkened as he blurted out, "Why is everyone suddenly so interested in me?" Andrion Leon Beck has countless unanswered questions. "I only took one personal knight, but ever since I woke up, Everyone has had something to say. For example, your beloved old father, Emperor Leon Beck. I am struggling to sort out the chaos you've caused, and yet you're here indulging in women. Next, the familiar toothy grin is unavoidable. Lord Scarface, how pathetic you look. Have you given up that bet already? Even young Julian Leon B. also sneers about this. Turning a maid into a knight is truly his style. My brother kept thinking about these words and felt helpless, unable to believe how quickly the rumors about Lon spread. Just then, a maid entered to deliver a message. Your Highness, the Queen has arrived. Andrian Leon B. angrily jumps up to protest. Come on. A moment later, Empress Leon B. appeared with a voice full of disappointment. I thought you had turned over a new leaf. It seems you're planning to go back to your old ways. She spoke in a low voice as if she had something difficult to say. Actually, this might be for the best. The next words made Empress Leon Bach look stunned and confused. Once she finds a wife and settles down, her son will surely stop this wandering. Suddenly, Empress Leon Bach furrowed her brows tightly, probably announcing the news about her mother. This time, I will definitely find a worthy wife for you. As soon as she finished speaking, she didn't give Andreon a chance to reply and turned around immediately. I don't know what to say anymore. A moment later, he summoned Adelia Bayan to his room. So now even gods will have mana? Andrian Leon B. nodded with a smile. Yes, a very special type of mana, so I'll do it right now. A blue sea magic appears in the palm of his hand. As soon as the energy flow within Adelia was stimulated, it turned to gold. Although the world has completely forgotten the sword spirit, I remember everything. The footsteps she leaves behind, the sword dancing on her fingertips, and the sword spirit cradling Adelia in its arms. And what a true swordsman cannot lack is the heroic beat of her own heart. When the mana is fully absorbed, the system displays a message that Adelia Bayan has sensed the mana. Andrian anxiously waits to see the next result. You have successfully inscribed the mana onto Adelia Bayan. The mana has been successfully shaped within her body. At that moment, her eyes widened with light, and a mana heart was created. Adelia's cheeks flushed with amazement. She asked, Is this mana? And Andrian calmly explained it clearly. What you just did is a method of forging a mana heart. From now on, practice it yourself whenever you have time. After saying this, he collapsed onto the ground, exhausted. Your Highness. Adelia quickly called out in panic, Are you okay? Andrian knelt down but was still quite alert. I never expected to end up like this just for creating a mana heart. He tried to sit up and shook his head to reassure. I'm just a little tired. Her eyes were fixed on Andrian's back as she asked why someone like me, a lowly being, had to go this far. He dismissively sent her out without letting Adelia ask any further questions. It's okay, go back now. I've been waiting, but Adele X still hasn't left. Why are you looking at me like that? Unexpectedly, she bowed her head and in a commanding tone said, The god will be loyal to you for the rest of your life. Hearing this, he was very pleased, as long as she didn't forget that I am her master. Her eyes sparkled as she clasped her hands together and replied, Yes, yes. After saying that, Andrian turned and walked away, a chilling thought suddenly crossing his mind. I'm afraid you'll forget. His face darkened as he emphasized a word. Honestly, time has passed quickly, and it's already been a few days. C approached Andrian with cautiousness. Your Highness, regarding Eris Tanching, I hear he is being held by the Royal Guard as a witness to the recent chaos. It seems no one is allowed to see him until the trial begins. This made me quite curious, so I asked again. The trial showed a look of boredom on Andrian Leon Beck's face. Don't tell me I also have to attend this trial. He replied immediately. The royal family doesn't need to go to court. A smile immediately spread across Andrian's face. That's good news. You're already showing signs of boredom. But the trial of theirs is really turning a small matter into a big one. Seeing Adelia on the other side, Andrian immediately had something to ask. Adelia, how are you doing? She was startled and froze for a second. What do you mean by that? You with your chin propped up questioning me. Has her mana heart stabilized yet? Adelia Bayan understood the meaning when she heard that. Yes, Your Highness. Upon receiving the signal, Andrian sat up and said, Good, from today you will join the training camp with me. Change your clothes and meet Tay at the training ground. Seeing her hesitation, he softly reminded her and threw away the mop. Now she's a knight. A moment later, Andrian was warming up on the training ground when a familiar voice suddenly rang out. What do you think you're doing? Bu Van Hout's expression hit straight into his eyes, making him uncomfortable. Can't you see? I'm warming up. He interrupted sharply, saying, Not you. Bu's gaze fixed on where Adelia was running desperately. I mean that girl over there. Do you understand? Andrian appears more composed. Do you not hear the rumors? I'm training her to become a knight. That only makes Bu even more furious. Are knightly titles so insignificant to you? Given the current situation, how can you act so casually? The more he gets angry, the more Andrion's blood boils. When did you start meddling in everything? If you hate that so much, why do you keep coming here? At that moment, Adelia ran over from afar. Your Highness! She collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath. She completed 10 laps. When she saw Adelia look over, she quickly turned away, feeling a moment of worry. Your Highness, I apologize, it's my fault. Andrion immediately pushed it aside and said, Forget it, take this. Today, I will only teach you the basic stance. Yet already, he's showing off a sword move in front of Adelia Bayan. First, take a stance and swing the sword like this. Andrion then issued a command with a second move. Try it. She's having trouble holding the wooden sword like this. Suddenly, Adelia's eyes widened, a sharpness flickering within, and her sword strike was quite skillful, her steps light and graceful. This made such a strong impression on Belvan Hat that even Andrion was stunned. Could she really have copied that perfectly after just one look? She quietly asked if her stance was correct according to the god's way, feeling a bit uneasy inside. Wait a moment. If I slack off, she'll pass me in the blink of an eye. The slave mentality means obeying the strong, not respecting the weak. I've felt uneasy because of how that damn prince used to torment her in the past. Thinking of this, the terrible vision appeared before Andrion, and if she surpasses him now... He cast a dark glance at Bayu. He showed a look of joy, surprised that she possessed such talent. He couldn't help but nudge Bayu. What do you think you're doing? Andrion said with a sour, jealous tone. Don't get obsessed with her. After hearing that, a faint twitch appeared at the corner of his mouth. What can you possibly give that child? You're just a novice who has only been wielding a sword for a few months. He reveals his demonic power and emphasizes, you can't control her. The words just spoken felt like a thorn stabbing Andrion. He bit his lip and thought to himself, if it were that bastard, he would have trembled and stepped back immediately. But I am not him. Andron Leon B's eyes blaze brightly in response. If I can't control her, the heart of his demon will ignite within his chest and no one can say otherwise. Simply because I drank the blood of giants, dragons, and countless other beings. Andrion's true nature is Ruhan. His eyes change, and his information system confirms, as part of his soul exists according to the user's will. The mana surrounding him changed. Even Bill could feel the aura emanating from him. Andrion faced him and emphasized each word, she is definitely mine. Definitely. Standing in front of Bayu, Andrion emphasized once again. She belongs to me. Don't look at her and don't try to possess her. I really hate it when someone takes what belongs to me. Andre Leon Beck takes a deep breath, feeling increasingly strange. My sense of reality is fading, unable to feel vitality or life, only filled with coldness and darkness. Is this a warning? Andrion is overwhelmed with worry. This fragile body will be swallowed by Gru's soul. As his will gradually faded, something awakened him and he faced Gru directly. Enough is enough. Once and for all, Andrion will tame his primal instincts. B's footsteps stomp firmly on the ground. He speaks in a deep voice. An ordinary knight can save 10 soldiers. An exceptional knight can save 100 soldiers. Von Hay looked at Adelia, still not understanding what was happening. That child might be able to save 1,000 or even more soldiers. Andrion stroked his chin and asked, Is it faith? For the greater good of the northern border commander? However, Andrion pretended to be indifferent and said, I don't care. Bayu's hopes will vanish into thin air, even if she can save countless people. Suddenly, Adelia Bayan softly spoke. The Count said she was determined to declare herself, My body and heart belong to His Highness. I cannot follow your orders. Count. Those words momentarily left Bayu speechless. Andrion stood aside smugly, thinking to himself, it was worth the effort to summon my soul. The slave mentality of obedience exists because of a higher hierarchy. He goes along with it, and it acts superior. She said that. And Uncle Thuck, isn't it true that you have nothing left to teach your daughter now? My only goal from the start was just to help her lose weight. If you want to keep coming to my palace, then from now on don't interfere in my affairs. He could only grit his teeth and concede. Understood. Even after that day, the wife continued to visit the palace every day to supervise Adelia. Although he couldn't do anything due to constant nagging and interference, Andrion found a little extra pleasure in it. Watching my proud uncle fidget like that is pretty entertaining. Suddenly, Adelia's wooden sword emitted a hint of mana. Even she couldn't believe it. Bay frowned because of the sudden feeling that came over him earlier. It was his shock at realizing the change. Has she learned sword resonance? Andrion clapped to get Dendet's attention from Adelia. Good, you did well. I can't help but feel worried inside. With how fast things are moving, I might really be falling behind. Adelia happily approached. only to find Bu trembling all over. He stood in front of Andrean, demanding, "Have you already taught the girl the entire mana heart?" His reply only made Bayu van Hat even angrier. "Yes, is there a problem?" At this point, he couldn't hold back anymore and shouted loudly, "Are you not satisfied just learning that petty cheap trick by yourself?" Andreon's face darkened, his eyes flashing with a warning, and he mercilessly threw a sentence at Bu, "Get out!" However, Bayu still tried to say a few more words, about a much better path, one with potential you couldn't even imagine, and you have already ruined everything. Andreon walked away without bothering to look back. The courtiers felt a bit awkward after hearing that. "Your Highness?" I don't need to wait for Andreon to say more. I will go on my own. Adelia stood between them, watching the two argue over her, and softly called out to the prince, "Do you think what I learned is just petty nonsense?" He was unhappy, his tone sharp as he interrupted, "No, absolutely not." "So why did the count say that then?" Andreon simply replied curtly, because he didn't realize that people of this era had completely forgotten what a real mana heart truly was. If they hadn't forgotten, they wouldn't discard it like an old pair of shoes. He said as he ignored Bu walking away, "She will soon know the true power of the mana heart." A few days later, at the training ground, the wooden sword was thrust firmly into the ground. Andreon crossed his arms, glanced at him without saying a word, then raised his face, teasingly muttered to Bu van Hat, "You act like you'll never come back." He only threw out 3 words, "Prove it. I will only use 1 mana chain. If you can make me retreat even half a step, I will acknowledge you." Andreon Leon Bach had no hesitation in grabbing the wooden sword. What was that bet again? He boasted loudly and granted a wish, then looked at him coldly with love in his eyes. "If you win, I will grant you one thing. Whatever it is, if you ask me to teach you the family's secret technique, I will do it." Andreon smirked, revealing a teasing expression. "That's not what you want. He's free to do as he pleases." "All right." For now, Andreon rushes forward, aiming first at his neck. "Just fight." Against this attack, Bayuchi casually sighed and wondered if he had aimed for the neck from the start. Duong Kim remained as deadly as ever, striking again. Bayu leant back to dodge, gritting his teeth in frustration as a barrage of sword strikes was skillfully avoided. He was so bored that he decided to create a variable, and with just 1 slash, Andreon had to use 6 or 7 parts of his strength to block the attack. Bu gained momentum and taunted him, "Is that all there is?" Andreon, feeling insulted, was filled with pride, but his first priority was to put some distance between himself and him. Seeing that, Bao inadvertently lowered his guard. "Have you already given up?" Andreon stood up, gripping his sword hilt once more. "Not a chance. He really is someone who knows everything in advance. He's truly annoying, but when it comes to what deserves recognition, I have to acknowledge it. Tukfu is very strong, and a man like him is just waiting for me to draw my mana so I can taste another humiliating defeat. With a mana heart of this level, I will definitely lose just as he predicted." Thinking that, he decided to switch to a verbal duel. "Isn't that strange?" His face twisted into a confused expression. Immediately after, Andreon Leon Beck explained that 400 years ago, countless knights using mana hearts achieved incredible feats. But because of a slightly more useful technique appearing, all the skills of those great knights are now considered garbage. It seems everyone believes that the technique called mana chain is a much more powerful way to control mana than the mana heart. As soon as he finished speaking, Bu straightforwardly questioned, "What exactly do you mean?" Andreon softly replied, half expressing, half declaring, "I think differently. It's not that the mana heart is weak, but its owner is weak. Not all mana hearts are the same." At this point, a confident look appeared in Andreon Leon B's eyes. "Brother, have you ever heard of the Battle Spirit song?" However, for B. Van Hat, those words were just annoying chatter. This is a place for sword fighting, not for discussing trivial matters. He slightly curled his lips and thought that the person would say "Fathat Sabadi" to his father, because he also called mana hearts crude techniques. Only petty mercenaries would learn them, and he didn't bother to hide his impatience. "You talk too much. Do you need more time to catch your breath?" Andreon paused for a moment before dismissing it. "No need." Andreon's steps gradually become lighter. "The path of a knight becomes a victory. 100 wins are my pride and my strength." The energy Andreon emits is so strange that even the BAU must be cautious. The system confirms the transformation, as I sing a song of 100 victories before 20 dreamer apprentices become knights. The achievement is engraved in the heart and will become a Battle Soul song. The Battle Soul song has been created. A new phenomenon occurred within the Holy Sword of the Night. An ordinary level battle song was created. A small, insignificant achievement I have made over the past half year. The effect of the battle song has been activated. This is the true power of the mana heart.
the battle spirit song, the system notification, and the effect of the battle song has been activated. Facing Andrion, Bell remained steadfast in his thoughts.
No matter what you do, it's the same. He frowned, dismissing all of his ideas.
As long as you possess a mana heart, you can't defeat the mana chains. Unexpectedly, Andrion Leon Bach ignored that and charged forward with his sword. As he closed in, Baku was momentarily surprised. Suddenly, Andrion's heart clenched with each pulse. Indeed, the mana of the rings has the property of causing mana reflux through the mana heart. He gritted his teeth and endured, almost failing, while Biu sneered slightly in satisfaction. He continued to use words to break Andrion's thoughts. You're quite stubborn to endure this well. Even though I was at a disadvantage, I still smiled. However, to create this song, I practiced over 100 times and endured the mana of the rings more than 1,000 times.
A power forged to counter knights wielding mana chains. In 100 clashes, I endured 1,000 waves. Mana from Andrion escapes, enveloping his entire body. His heart is curled up within blazing magic. This is the power of the battle song. The wooden sword has now become much sharper. Biu faces him, thinking to himself that now it seems worth a try. Andrion's speed suddenly vanishes in an instant. Their swords clash and an overwhelming pressure radiates out. Biu remains steady, only you are moving desperately. The longer the fight lasts, the more Andrion's strength is pushed beyond its limit. He then felt somewhat exhausted, surprised that he could hold on so long without him, when suddenly something touched the hilt of his sword. Biu decided to strike, directly chopping down. Andrion was pushed back several meters, his face smeared with dirt from the fight. He asked sternly, "What do you think?"
I haven't finished talking yet, but you cut me off. I told you already.
Not all mana hearts are the same. B's magic circle lights up. You're truly arrogant. He unconsciously shifted his foot from the original position and then exerted force to perform a basic move. Andrion's body couldn't withstand the impact and was thrown away.
Time has passed too long. Bon H's endurance also has its limits. I won't play around anymore, just enduring until now is already commendable. I will praise you, but you don't care. Just try to get up and think. As expected, common-grade battle soul songs are not enough. However, Andrion continued to tell the story. 400 years ago, the knights made a serious mistake. They left no enemies for future generations. At first, everything was surely passed down intact, from sword techniques, proper training methods for the heart, to brilliant battle songs. But time has eroded those glorious achievements and eventually caused them to be forgotten. Stories about dragons never seen and giant kings never heard of have surely become legendary myths. Of course, new battle hymns have been created. However, at best, it is only a victory over 10 knights. At best, it is only a feat of defeating 100 soldiers. At best, it is a song built when facing humans. With levels that cannot become legends or heroes, it cannot withstand the new wave. Andrion's eyes show no trace of emotion. With such cheap techniques as those, you can't reach the superlative level. Upon hearing this, Biu Van Hot questioned, "Are you drinking wine in the middle of the day? I haven't understood what you're saying all this time." In his eyes, he's just a stubborn Biu Van Hot, an arrogant and foolish knight. At this moment, Andrion continues his speech. You must understand how greatly you have lost. Amidst the raging fury of mana, he silently monologues to himself. If you don't know, it seems mana has turned into an arm to shield Andrion Leon Beck's hand. I will teach you something no sword can cut through. Carving the dragon's scales and drinking its hot blood. This time, the system displays a new message. I sing loudly the song of the true dragon to destroy the world. Suddenly, Andrion's heart clenched with unbearable pain. His current power couldn't withstand the level of the song. Part of the song was omitted. 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 Part of the song was cut. Part of the song was cut. Finally, after the final confirmation system was bypassed, only one line of the first quarter of the song was sung, and his eyes glowed red with the power of his sword. Dragon slaying, sword clashes, sword firing, and more. Biu's mana-infused sword is showing signs of being cut in half. His pupils are constricting to the limit. If this continues, I will be completely consumed. Finally, the energy reaches its peak, and a blazing light erupts in the clear sky. The explosion causes the entire arena to be destroyed. Andrion was thrown far away with a cry of desperation. Your Highness! The smoke gradually dispersed, but Biu's figure remained standing tall. He struggled to sit up, and in his sight were Biu's 4 magic rings. He couldn't hold back and questioned, Didn't you say you only used 1 ring? Biu Van Hot frowned, and he thought to himself, so after using all 4 rings he had, he still couldn't stop his sword from being cut. On the other side, Andrion sat upright.
Mana from the weaker heart is real and cannot be denied. At that moment he spoke first, coldly declaring, Lord Bu Van Hat. Just 3 words made Bu tremble all over. You have lost in your moment of triumph. Suddenly a multitude of things disturbed Andrion's heart, wrapping tightly around his soul grew on. Stop, please, stop right now. Andrion Leonby's face turned visibly pale as he unconsciously clutched his chest and collapsed. Back in the present, the pain still torments Andrion on the bed, his trembling hand clutching the bedsheet tightly. Andrion's face was covered in sweat. This damn battle song. This is the price paid for forcibly extracting the power of the battle soul to cut away the dragon scales. Because the Song of the True Dragon's Extinction is a mythic-level soul song, Andrion, regaining his composure, clenched his fist with pride. My body has been worn down because of it, but it was a worthy price to pay. The first battle hymn I wove myself, winning 100 battles, is my pride and also my strength. After hundreds of fierce battles, I have endured thousands of turbulent waves. I will stand firm against even greater storms. He smiles faintly with satisfaction. The level of the Song of Battle has increased a bit, and thinking about something that excites Andrion, this should be enough to fight that bastard third prince. Suddenly, Adelia's voice rang out. Prince, she saw you and acted like a fan meeting someone. Finally, you've woken up. Everything has been chaos since you fainted. The gods have never seen the Empress so angry before. Hearing that, Andrion chuckled softly. Serves them right. Adelia cautiously interrupted his and the Count's singing, also leaving a message to inform him as soon as His Highness wakes up. Andrion lazily lies down on the bed. Don't report yet, I will rest a little longer. Then he immediately used silent commitment to be with her, because Andrion was too busy focusing on the spirit inside his body. If I don't recover my spirit properly after being harmed by the overuse of the soul battle song, I will have to pay a very terrible price. Reality and past memories will blend together, creating chaos, and eventually the boundary of reality will completely collapse. Eventually becoming a madman, I will endlessly relive the moments of the soul battle within a fractured world. Thinking of this outcome, his face contorted. Thinking about being trapped again in the memories of the sword after finally becoming human is enough to make me shiver. According to Andrion's old memories, Ednis Bayan was a great female swordsman. After explaining to Adelia, he emphasized that because she is a descendant of the Bayan family, she should be able to inherit the soul song her ancestor left behind. She was a bit surprised to hear that, not expecting her ancestor to be such a great female swordsman. He just shrugged and poured water. Of course, she needs to grow a lot more before she can reach a level worthy of that song, so in that regard, Andrion half suggested and half queried. What does she want to do when learning swordsmanship? Adelia seems to have never thought about this. That was her avoiding his gaze. If the gods could truly become knights, Andrion was helpless in the face of that awkwardness. If the god becomes a knight, I don't want to make things difficult for Adelia Bayan anymore. If you can't think of anything, let's talk about it later. Suddenly she still tries to speak her mind. I will. And Kwang waits for Adelia's next words as she gathers her courage to declare the prince's god. The god will become the prince's sword. At this moment, Andrion's memories of when he was a sword suddenly flood back. There are songs of victory that begin with the sound of trumpets, and others that start with the first step crossing the field. There are also stories that begin with words carved deep into the soul. Adelia's vow echoed loudly, to live for the prince for the rest of his life. The gods will dedicate everything to the prince. Suddenly, the system issued a hidden notification. Adelia Bayanzin sings a song of submission. Mana's heart suddenly lights up. Is this Adelia's battle soul song? And sometimes a battle soul song can also affect others. A new battle soul song has been created, with golden light shining directly on Adelia. A high-level battle hymn has been created. The song of domination has been forged. From what you know, the subjugation song is a hymn dedicated to the master. Instead of being a battle soul song, it resembles a vow of submission that binds the souls together, even if she has the personality of a subordinate. Looking at Adelia, Andrion thought to himself, I didn't expect the descendant of the Sword Mother, to compose a song of submission. I have sensed an unexpected help now. Looking at my current abilities, Andrion smiles with satisfaction. As long as I remain the target of the Song of War spirit, Adelia's growth will also benefit me. Andrion smiled at her and thanked her. For a moment, Adelia couldn't help but blush continuously. Your Highness. In the dark room, 2 pairs of eyes gently meet, although we still don't know which direction that benefit will take. Time has passed, and now it has been a few days. Andrion's face looks increasingly dull. Adelia stood in front, speechless and confused. Just then, a call echoed from outside. Yan, do you feel better now? He stammered in response. I'm fine. Andrion cautiously watches Queen Leon Beck outside the door. Dealing with those who hate this body is even easier, but when it comes to someone who truly cares for the original owner of this body, it becomes quite complicated. Suddenly, she asked, "Do you resent your stepmother?" "Don't let him answer." Empress Leon Beck spoke in a calm voice, saying, "My maternal grandfather didn't really mean to hurt me, so even if there are any remaining bad feelings, please let them go. I have no negative feelings at all." To my surprise, Empress Leon B became even more agitated. Why wouldn't he? He treats me harshly and complains about me all the time, claiming he has no negative feelings, so he's definitely lying. Andrion helplessly explained, "No, I really don't." He tiredly scratched his face, waiting for her reaction. Remembering that day, he told himself, I already struck him that day. Because all of his pride and sense of truth have been denied, he must be struggling to endure it. What I planted in his heart that day. A demon in the soul. If he has the courage, he will go even further. But if he cannot overcome it, he will lose that precious martial spirit. Honestly, I don't care what happens after that. Empress Lion Box smiled and reminisced, saying that your grandfather spent his whole life more attached to his sword than to people, so he was a bit clumsy and rough. However, lately he seems to be very proud of you. He even personally convinced the emperor. The next words made Andrion's careless thoughts stir even more. And thanks to him, your house arrest was lifted earlier than expected. But trouble struck as soon as the house arrest was lifted, when Andrion suddenly declared to arrest them all. She let out a long breath. My uncle's position must also be quite awkward. Remembering that, he looked confused for a moment. Is that why he seemed displeased? Andrion stroked his chin, pondering for a moment, but then a big question suddenly appeared in his mind. Why did that man do this for me? After Queen Leon Bach's visit, another old man appeared, the scholar Niccolo Macchia riding along. He smiled like a pyramid scheme. Your Highness. Andrion coldly and firmly silenced them. I absolutely refuse. C and Adelia stand silently to the side, surprised to see him resort to an old trick, crawling on the ground and crying out. Really? Why do I have to learn? Niccolo once said that if I don't learn, there's no difference between a human and a beast. Hearing this, he jumped up in anger. Are you calling me a beast? He patiently and calmly advises you that you have only just begun learning, so your highness, I still cannot call you a beast. Andrion shouted in protest. I haven't even started yet. Don't play word games with me. Then he sulkily sat down on the ground. I may look like this, but I already know everything I need to know. I'm saying I don't need to learn anything more, understand? Niccolo Macchiade continues with his pyramid scheme. If you are so determined, then let's do this. You will discuss a few topics with me. If your skills are truly as you claim, then the gods won't bother to come looking for you anymore. Your Highness, opportunities come in the blink of an eye, and the goat immediately bites. I hear it, the discussion is happening, followed by Andrion's slam on the table. Yes, exactly. That's why you should always watch your back, because human nature is to climb over others if someone appears too tolerant. Niccolo, trusting his emotions, agreed completely. Seizing the opportunity, he handed over a book and said, You will find this book quite interesting. He quickly flipped through a few pages, where it describes the relationship between the king and his subjects as a kind of contract or deal. The king receives military and economic support in exchange for protecting his subjects, while the subjects seek to scrutinize the king and political stability to gain their loyalty. This seems to align with Andrion's perspective. The old man has a point. All relationships are basically give and take. So the conversation continued until late afternoon. So this part is correct indeed, and this area as well. Niccolo finished gathering the books and papers. Well then, Your Highness. He smiled brightly and promised, We'll continue the rest of the discussion tomorrow. You didn't realize you were being led on and still waved goodbye. Fine, I'll wait. Even after Niccolo left, Andrion still seemed quite cheerful. Suddenly, his alertness returned in an instant. Wait a minute, did I just attend a normal class? Andrion's lips twitch as if he's been duped. That old man is really cunning. On the other hand, he also has some thoughts about me. The Crown Prince, he is quite different from the rumors. The next day, when the sun was at its highest, Andrion lay on his back on the bed with a face that had eaten everything. He rolled over and complained a few times, so bored. His heart was always restless and hard to describe. Have I been working too hard lately? Because I haven't been focusing on training, so there's nothing to do. My body is also in the process of healing. Suddenly, a report comes from outside the door. Your Highness, you've been singing and dancing to meet someone. He quickly stood up, excited. It's been a long time since we had a visitor, Adelia asked. Curiously, what should we do now? Andrion, bored out of his mind, decided to have a little fun. All right, invite him in. You stand here waiting for your master to arrive. It's been a few days since that fight, so it's about time he paid a visit. Your attitude changed when you met Beu, but it seems he still hasn't overcome the inner demons I planted in him. He sighed deeply and then spoke sincerely.
I am very sorry. I broke my promise and caused you serious injury because of it.
I have no excuses at all. Andrion, haunted by guilt after the recent battle, knew that his injuries were not caused by his uncle's sword aura, but by overusing the True Dragon Annihilation soul song. He gritted his teeth even more when he remembered Queen Leon B's words. Uncle's situation must also be very difficult, considering that my nephew caused another trouble. Beu spoke in a low voice. So tell me what you want. If you ask for my arm, I will give it to you. If you demand my eye, I will give it to you too. He gasped coldly, exhaling a chilling breath. What can I do with that trash? Right now, Andrion is in a difficult and unsolvable situation. Could someone who was supposed to be a sword saint in the past really be bound by such dark thoughts? After thinking for 5 seconds, he made his decision. All right. I will be generous and share my wish first. Elder, let me go on a trip outside. She was a bit surprised. Since the curfew has ended, isn't it true that you can go out any time? He just gestured with a shake of his head to indicate he was wrong. Not the kind of day trip like that, going somewhere really far, maybe even leaving the capital. Andrion's request left him stunned like a statue. Taking a moment before he could speak, it will take some time to arrange the schedule. With the upcoming banquet, going too far is not an option. Andre waved dismissively. That's fine. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around. All right then, I will try to contact you once the schedule is set. If you're okay with it, go ahead and dismiss him. C and I watch him leave together. Seeing that he has something difficult to ask, Andrion directly inquires. What? Why are you looking at me like that? He hesitated for a moment without replying quickly, then scratched his face and forced a smile. It's just a bit surprising. I thought your highness would demand something much more unreasonable. Because the count broke his promise, and this is a rare opportunity to profit in many ways without being caught. He also can't really explain. All I could do was say one thing afterward, feeling sorry for that stubborn old man's behavior. Before I could even get over the shivers, I caught C's mischievous laugh. What's that? Why are you laughing, C? You've been looking way too relaxed lately. At this moment, Adelia appeared, holding a small piece of paper in her hand. The letter you've been waiting for has arrived. Your Highness, it bears a seal from somewhere. That letter is quite brief, but complete. Recently, I achieved a small victory. Maybe I will visit you soon. I hope you stay healthy until then. Sent from awakens? Reading the last few lines, Andrion gently smiles. The news arrived just in time. About 5 days later, my lord sent a message of good news. And 2 days later, the day of departure arrived, and the carriage convoy left the city gates. Andrion, like a young boy of 5, leaned out the window. Uncle, what's the name of the territory we're going to visit? Elin frowned and reminded him. Can't sit still, huh? But seeing how excited you are, he had to concede and say, I will explain, so go inside. The story begins from a time shrouded in darkness. The Count of Lanlen owns the largest weapon factory in the kingdom, with iron mines in the territory supplying high-quality steel and a guild of talented blacksmiths to refine it. It's no exaggeration to say that more than half of the weapons supplied to the royal family come from Andrion Leonbeck's eyes lit up brightly. Perfect. I excitedly consider new possibilities in my mind. My strength has improved a lot, so it's time to find a sword of my own. At first, I was just going to take a decent sword from the royal armory to use for now, but C then told me to forgive the Lord. Because it is a royal decree, we cannot provide any weapons to the person. Your Highness, be aware that you will face severe punishment if that brat touches the sword again. Andrion was startled to remember that, because his mischievous host's body was pierced by Gruon, the more he thought about it, the more helpless he felt. Considering this guy's poor track record, it was only natural. But anyway, that means if I want a decent weapon, I have to find it outside the palace. Suddenly, Andrion froze, secretly glancing at Beu, a fleeting thought crossing his mind. He is surprisingly considerate given his appearance. But you reminded him, too noisy, close the window. He shouted in frustration, what, no way. And so, the 20-day journey has just begun. Forced to sit still in the carriage, Andrion decided to stabilize the magic within himself. But now it's time for me to refill it. The shaking of the carriage, the cold breeze passing by, and the sound of knights echoing from outside. Gather the tiny mana points hidden within the space. If I fill this empty mana heart, gradually the mana pulses will draw into your heart, and suddenly Andrion Leon B senses a small conflict. Huh? Even in his subconscious, when did my mana heart become so big? A new notification appears. You have attempted an extraordinary feat beyond your abilities and have glimpsed a fragment of that immense will. As he finished reading, he silently thought that this was the effect of forcibly using the song of the true dragon's extinction. Suddenly, a light shone from Andrion's chest. That effort has reflected on your body. Your mana heart has been expanded. Thanks to your expanded mana heart, your physical body has changed significantly. You can now withstand more mana. Furthermore, you have reached the realm of the Swordmaster. Your connection to the source has improved slightly. Some limitations on your powers have been lifted. The powers of Heavenly Eye and Wind Listening Ear have been significantly improved. From Adelia's perspective, he only seems to be acting strangely. Your Highness, I didn't expect you to be indifferent, even gesturing wildly. The martial arts test is over. Andrion clenched his fist in excitement. I have taken another step forward. The caravan has reached the first destination. As soon as Lord Alan Andrion stepped down, someone came to greet him. I can't express the honor of being received in this manner. Your Highness, the two men in front of you bow deeply with respect. Aga of the Allen family respectfully greets you. Torrance, the eldest son of the Allen family, respectfully greets the Grand Prince. He politely led the group and replied, "Thank you for your hospitality." Aga smiled politely and said, "Since it's been a long journey, you must be tired. I will take you to your restroom first." Andrion didn't answer right away, instead looking around. And inside Andrion Leon B, a few observations appeared. They said this was a weapons manufacturing site, and as expected, the entire mansion was filled with all kinds of weapons. However, they are only low-level items just for show and useless in actual combat. As he walked in with Iga, he kept glancing around. Andrion looked a bit annoyed, seeming unlikely to find what he needed here. Unable to hold back any longer, he asked directly, "You said the Blacksmith Guild is inside this territory, right?" He casually replied, "Yes, that's right." But since it was convenient, Andrion directly suggested, "I want to go see it for myself." After a moment, someone's footsteps grew more hurried. Aga already took him somewhere. The nature of blacksmiths is that they are rough and conservative. When the work reaches its peak, they often ignore even the Lord when he visits, and the words they speak are as cold and rough as the iron they are working with. So, even if you feel offended, please consider it the spirit of the artisan and forgive generously. It seemed that Andrion Leon Beck couldn't hear anything. All he saw were flames and the sound of hammers ringing out. Entering inside, Aga acts like the host and introduces himself. "The heat from the furnace is intense. If it becomes uncomfortable, Your Highness, please speak up." Andrion still couldn't shake off the shock from earlier as the sound of hammers striking the metal echoed through the air. Seeing what he was about to do, he was a bit confused. The prince stepped into the forge, and Andrion seemed to burn along with him. The flames roar, the bellows hiss, and the blacksmiths pound their hammers on the iron block. The heat makes his sweat flow freely. However, among them, what he cared about gradually appeared before his eyes. There was a strangely pure sound. Andrion stops in front of a diligent blacksmith, an older man whose passion and strength remain unwavering. What is before my eyes narrows into the depths of my gaze. The image of Gruon appears in my mind. This is the very first memory I remember clearly. Suddenly, someone used a handkerchief to wipe the sweat from my face. Andrion saw Adelia Bayan as soon as he looked over. "Your Highness, you're sweating too much." He suddenly snapped out of his thoughts, turned away dismissively, and refused her concern, then continued watching the old blacksmith forging a sword as the master blacksmith gathered the workers to witness Andrion's arrival. "These lowly ones humbly greet the Grand Prince." Aga continued. "This one's name is Jackson. He is the leader of this blacksmith guild, but you don't care. I understand." However, Andrion only focused on the old man pounding his sword, thinking that Jackson was angry because he was unhappy, and he shouted angrily, "What are you doing? Stop immediately and bow to the prince." Unexpectedly, this made Andrion angry. "You're making too much noise." His eyes clearly showed his displeasure. The blacksmiths also fell silent, not daring to say anything. The fiery red sword has already started to smell of smoke. He turned his head to look around, clearly indicating they were forced here while working. Thinking for a moment, Andrion spoke up to remind them, "Doing things I haven't even ordered, the iron will cool down, unless you also want the fire in the furnace to go out completely. Keep standing there." As soon as he finished speaking, the blacksmiths all rushed out. "What are you doing? Hurry up and get the tools and blow on the fire quickly." They left, leaving Andrion standing still and watching. The space around him seemed to freeze, and the man in front of him still didn't stop, his hammer's rhythm steady and unchanging. Andrion had no intention of disturbing, only observing every move. In the depths of his eyes, the light from the sword was reflected, as if the surroundings were engulfed in flames and fire surrounded it. The sword itself glowing brightly. his gaze fixed solely on the man. The more sweat flows, the faster the breathing becomes. Andrion wondered, what exactly is this feeling? The factory tour has ended, and Ega sees Andrion out. For any reason, he has been repeatedly forging swords and melting them down over the past 6 months. Hearing that, I was a bit curious. Are they defective products? He shook his head sadly. It's hard to say. Ega gradually recounts that the swords he makes are considered masterpieces, earning him the title of the Sword Master. Even the swords he has made so far are extremely perfect in my eyes. It's truly a mystery why he would give away all of them. The more I think about it, the more confusing and regretful it becomes. Furthermore, over the past month, he has hardly slept and has only been immersed in work. Since he is no longer young, we can't help but worry. Andrion said nothing more, only took a step straight toward the manor. A true artisan. Many days have passed since then, and the prince has been coming to the forge early every morning and leaving only when late at night. During that time, the old man simply continued his daily work, and the prince quietly watched him, contrary to the tension caused by the rumors that the crown prince would arrive. Surprisingly, no incidents occurred. One moonlit night on the roof of the mansion, Andrion went to the forge as usual. And finally, the day the prince has to leave has arrived. He seems to want to say something, but then hesitates. The man still ignored him as usual. When he thought he had reached his limit, Andrion let out a sigh. I had hoped to see it finished before I left. Ega was speechless in the face of his anticipation. He silently thought to himself that he must be feeling very regretful. Then, Andrion turned around and called to go, saying, I heard there is a farewell party tonight and we must depart early tomorrow morning. Ega silently watched his figure disappear into the distance, perhaps hoping that the prince would see the sword forged by the master, even for a brief moment the next morning when the sun was at its highest, as Prince Andrion appeared with a strange, sweet look. From afar, Ega hurriedly ran over to deliver the news that the master blacksmith had finished the sword. Hearing this, the next person to rush over was Andrion, and what caught his eye was the muscular old man holding a sword. The old man carefully cleans the entire sword, which finally shines brightly under the sunlight. Without a word, the man kneels before Andrion and presents the sword. The blade reflects his eyes. I humbly present this sword to your highness, the old man said slowly, enunciating each word clearly. Even I have never thought of that before. Forge it like the rising sun on the horizon and cool it until its hue matches the king's dragon gem. If you do that, a sword like the sun and a king will be born. An excerpt from the Song of the Blacksmiths. Holding the sword in his hand, Andrion asked, Does it have a name? The old man bowed his head respectfully. What if we call it Sunset? He asked. Curiously, is it the sunset of dawn or the sunset of the evening? The old man calmly replied. To me, it's the evening glow, but for his highness, it must be the dawn. After hearing that, Andrion burst into laughter. He's also good at eating and talking, isn't he? For a blacksmith, suddenly his tone deepened as he let out a long breath. As he said that, he collapsed to the ground, feeling relieved. When did the man faint without anyone noticing? C softly whispered in his ear. Your Highness, help the old man and remind him to speak to my uncle. I think I will stay here tonight. That night, the tent was lit by torches, and Andrion sat inside alone, taking care of the man. The old man seems to have regained some consciousness. That moment when the prince stood behind me, the sword had taken shape as if it was destined. The true sword itself has decided the day it will be born. He crosses his arms, a slight smile on his lips. What do you think about that? Andrion's face darkened as if he wanted to say something. Actually, when you leaned in and whispered into the man's ear, he was startled and shivered. 3 seconds later, he shouted out loud, Oh my God, so you are? Andrion understood and quickly nodded in confirmation. How could I not understand this guy's innermost thoughts? Having understood everything, the man lying in bed chuckled and spoke with a sense of satisfaction. I understand now, I truly understand. Your Highness, please lend me that sword for a moment. He quickly handed the hilt of the sword to his master. The trembling hand of the old man received the sword, sweat dripping down his face. I pray that this sword may become as great as your own spirit. Hearing that, his heart stirred. Andrion grasped the man's hand firmly, and what was to come finally arrived. It seemed the man had reached his final path, sacrificing himself to forge the greatest sword. That night, Andrion seemed to make a promise to himself. Surely the next day, another sword would be packed in a box, and Ega happily brought it to give to Andrion. Although we cannot simply discuss the value of a sword forged with a soul, I believe it would be inconvenient for His Highness to use. I happen to have this fine sword I wish to present to you. Please accept this as a replacement. Andrion accepted it with a kind smile. It's very good,
He quietly calculated in his heart that although it wasn't a top-tier item, it was a good mid-level sword. Seeing his interest, he was quite pleased. "Your Highness, what about that sword?" Andrion casually sheathed the sword at his waist and replied. Just the fact that a renowned master poured all his effort into creating it is already an incredible gift. "So you even plan to offer an additional magic sword?" As expected, the dragon's loyalty to the royal family is truly unwavering. The person he leads is like a lost soul. He reluctantly bowed his head and spoke. "It is an honor for the family." He screamed loudly in frustration. "I was planning to use that dazzling magic sword as bait to get back the master blacksmith's sword, but now I've lost a good sword for nothing." A moment later, in a certain forest, Bu announced to the troop that the carriage and infantry would follow slowly, while the cavalry would advance at maximum speed. "We're behind schedule, so let's hurry up and catch up." They all replied in unison, "Yes, Your Majesty." Andrion looked at him and blurted out, asking, "He seems busy, right? Come to think of it, I haven't seen his figure at all during our time in the territory."
Bayu raised his head and replied, "The king has given me a special task." He stroked his chin, adopting a playful look.
I guess my journey won't be entirely free either."
"All right, get ready quickly. We plan to make a swift transfer to Lion Fortress tonight, so we'll have to ride horses." Hearing this, Andrion seemed to remember something. "Yes, I don't know how to ride a horse." He was stunned for a moment. Hang Ta's eyes were fixed intently on Andrion.
"I used to be a sword, so how could I know how to ride a horse?"
Andrion forced himself to go along because he had no other choice. The road to Tietsutu City had a few unexpected incidents along the way, but his face was a few shades paler.
Although it wasn't half a day as initially planned, we arrived at our destination after about a whole day.
Standing in front of the city gate, he let out a breath and asked, "So this is the city of execution?" The footsteps of the soldiers behind him echoed in unison, with the young man leading, maintaining a respectful stance. "I, the beloved of the Woden family, respectfully greets the Grand Prince. The siege masters salute the noble blood of Leon Beck." Their hospitality made him feel cold. "Your bravado seems a bit excessive." Andrion's gaze subtly shifted to the soldiers accompanying them.
As for the reason, well, it's obvious already. I suddenly had a fiery idea. Maybe I should stir things up a bit.
From afar, someone is approaching. Awin. Awin understood immediately, "Your Highness.
I have counted the days just to see Your Highness again."
As soon as the words finished, dozens of fiery eyes stared at him. Oh, quite a quick reaction. Suddenly, Andrian Leon Beck felt a chill down his spine. He quickly turned around and met Adelia Bayan's gaze. "The hostility is directed at us. Her owner might provoke Adelia." He called softly, "Adelia." She suddenly woke up and returned to her usual calm demeanor. She nodded respectfully. "Yes, Your Highness?" Seeing that, Andrion's heart felt a little more at ease. Luckily, I had already cultivated her obedience early on. To save time, Andrion turned to Awin, and now he could give orders at will. "Awin, come with me. Isn't it true that we have a lot to discuss while Andrion is secretly plotting behind the scenes? It would be even better if the others behind her also came along." A month later, Andrion took off his coat and went to the training ground, standing in front of Awin's fans. He straightforwardly said, "I want to see the swordsmanship of the elite, those considered the best in the kingdom. Who will show me their swords?" All eyes turned to one person, so he also looked in that direction. Seeing they remained silent, Andrion confidently declared, "If my status makes you feel pressured, I, under the name of Leon B., guarantee that no one will be held accountable for the outcome of this duel." "Is no one here yet?" Knowing it's not usually allowed, he then deliberately provokes them. "I never expected the renowned titles to be so fragile. Oh, it seems the strongest title in the kingdom is just a hollow reputation." Hearing this, the young man with orange hair stepped forward with his sword. "I am a member of the Denon family," he declared firmly. "Although I still have many shortcomings to represent the sword of the Iron Lion, if you allow me, I humbly request to stand before His Highness." He waved his hand, a faint smile forming on his lips. "There's no need to ask for permission. I was the one who made the request first." As soon as he finished speaking, Deo strode forward. "Please be careful." He stared sharply, revealing his keen edge. The two swords clashed, emitting a blue glow, and after just a touch, he spat out blood. With a single move, he was thrown back and slid smoothly along the ground. Andrion's mana heart blazed fiercely, and soon Deo was defeated, but others also retreated. Among them, there was another brave one, Paolo from Team, who was only a first year, while I was already in my third year.
Before I could finish my sentence, he also got knocked out.
Then came some tickling attacks on Andrion.
I, a 5-year apprentice swordsman, Judith in my 8th year, and the lion swords never lose. No, only the sound of clashing echoes in the training yard. About 15 minutes passed, and Andrion had defeated the entire lion cavalry team. Then he looked bored.
Honestly, now I want to face those real knights. You guys are moving pretty slowly. Andrion called out to Awen. Hearing that, she stepped forward. Yes, Your Highness. He smiled and nodded. When I return, you will come with me. Awen paused for a moment before speaking. The woman bowed respectfully, and at the prince's command, a dark figure behind suddenly spoke. The prince. He smirked, pleased that it was so easy. That man continued to speak. I hear the prince enjoys betting, or maybe having a quick game to liven up the atmosphere. If I defeat Your Highness, before I can finish my words, Andrion interrupts and refuses. Awen is not a prize for a tournament, and she is deeply moved by that. Your Highness. Andrion directly drops the wooden sword to the ground and offers a different proposal. How about we bet on something else instead? Come here with the sword. He reached out and took the sword, then said, If you win, I will give you this sword right here. Awen was quite surprised by his boldness. The man was just as surprised. She deliberately ran to trip Andrion Leon back. Your Highness, I should have been the one. She is 100 times, 1,000 times more precious than this sword, because he always believes that the value of a swordsman cannot be compared to an ordinary sword. The excited man nodded. Very good, Your Highness. He drew his sword and announced himself as Dunham of the Fahrenheit family, a knight of the Steel Lion Order approaching the third Jeech. You might as well have let it go casually. So you mean you're still only at the second step? He was so angry he couldn't speak. Putting that aside, Dunham raised the hilt of the sword in his hand. This sword is the 17th piece crafted by the master blacksmith. If you win, it will belong to the prince. Hearing the familiar name, he chuckled and said, What a coincidence. Andrion quickly drew the sword that the old, sinewy man had given him and revealed a shocking truth. I also happen to have a sword received from that master. He emphasized each word carefully. That was his 100th masterpiece. Dunham hesitated for a moment. I've never heard any rumors about that master making his 100th sword. Based on that, Andrion's strikes are even stronger. I guess not. That was his final work. He just finished it a few days ago, and he was already a bit angry at that time. Fine. Even though His Highness is walking a misguided path of swordsmanship, I can see the relentless effort poured into that journey. The sneering words only amuse Andrion more. A misguided path, you say? To show a little respect for that, I will do my best in this competition. Mana's heart once again blazed with a very ordinary fire. This place from the very beginning was never meant to be considered mine. Respect directed at me is the gaze of those you have gathered. It can only be said with one word, as long as it comes from our people. With that, Andrion softly calls out, Adelia, watch carefully. She was caught off guard and couldn't react in time. Really? The mana you just released from your brother is unlike anything I've seen before. Andrion Leon B. firmly emphasized each word. This is the path she must walk from now on. Adelia obediently nodded. Yes, the connection between her and Andrion was completed in an instant. I am sure I will do that. Your Highness, in Yi's room, smoke rises from the teacup. So Bayu sit across from him and ask, How many times have we visited the Steel Lion City? This is the 4th time. He stroked his chin, pondering something. Based on B. Van Hat's intuition, the 4th prince doesn't care about the throne and definitely won't come, while the 3rd and 5th princes have already visited during the time the crown prince was under house arrest, and even the 2nd prince just recently stopped by. Ayu put down the teacup and said, No matter how bad the reputation is, it cannot be denied that the crown prince is the legitimate heir to the throne. He angrily pointed at B. Van Hat's face, and for everything to have come to this, he must bear a great responsibility. If the commander of the 3rd Army supported the Crown Prince even a little, Your Highness would not have become so isolated. He lowered his head and listened to the accusations. So why have you only acted like his guardian now? Bu does not deny what you just said. You are not wrong. I did abandon my nephew, my own grandson, who is not only an inept ruler but also a tyrant. One day, when I scolded him for being drunk on some toxic potion, Andrion angrily shouted back arrogantly, Are you crazy? His face flushed with anger. Unable to contain the turmoil inside, he charged at his own father with a sword. For Bo at that time, there was only one thought in his mind. A useless bastard, when I returned to the north. In disappointment, my grandson gave me poisoned wine, still hesitantly calling it a gift. Along with a letter, Bu angrily grabbed the poisoned bottle without a second thought. He is determined to finish it. When I used mana to burn that cheap poison, which I don't know where it was sourced from, I also burned away the remaining family feelings tied to it. However, the bastard I thought would never change has now become different. He endures even harsher training and is growing stronger every day. Back in the present, Love is still angrily questioning, didn't you say so yourself, that the crown prince must never become king. Belle's teacup is raised to Andrion's smile. The boy now is completely different from before. Because of that, he decided to humble himself just this once. Give him a chance, at least so he can start on equal footing with the other princes. Not only that, but Bu also bows before the love.
I beg you, you're almost 70 years old and you've never seen anything like this before. I really can't understand. I don't know if it's you or the crown prince who has changed, but for now, lift your head up.
A person known as the Silver Sorcerer, before he could finish speaking, a soldier burst through the door. Lord Woden and the other looked quite surprised. The crown prince, after receiving the news, went with Bu to the training ground, so there's no need to worry too much.
Dungham knows the forest well, so nothing serious will happen.
All along the way, he kept reassuring him that even in a real sword fight, he definitely wouldn't attack the royal family to the point of losing consciousness. After hearing this, Bayu spoke more seriously. The person you should be worried about right now isn't the prince, but your knight. He, on the other hand, seems a bit hard to believe. You've really become strange. Your face is pale, and now you're even saying unreasonable things. Before he could finish speaking, a familiar figure fell right at their feet. You immediately recognized the person lying on the ground. Dunham was stunned for a long time. What is going on here? Bu was a bit awkward, but also proud. I told you so. Andrion wiped away the dried blood from the corner of his mouth. In his eyes, Andrion was very different from before. He's not the person you need to worry about, he shouted loudly with passion. The next Tukvu always says that a true knight only begins when there are two chains. That's why Andrion fought so hard against Dunham. Throughout the battle, Andrion Leon Beck experienced it firsthand. Those words were not boastful at all. He also realized that the current battle song is not enough, but I cannot casually use the true dragon destruction song against an ordinary knight. In that case, the system confirms the activation of the super-focused talent, and Andrion's mana heart beats strongly within his chest. Step by step, he drew the fading outlines. Everything became silent, and his body no longer felt like his own. Andrion's eyes blazing with blue fire reflected that sensation. Just like that moment, the scene where Dunham was about to draw his sword reappears in his eyes, and they clash, sending sparks flying. As a result, Dunham was thrown out of the chicken coop by a meteor. He is exhausted, but no longer himself. As another person falls, Andrion's voice echoes once more. The next opponent still faces precise and steady strikes, with sharp swordsmanship and a half-smile of confidence. Andrion has no problem knocking out opponents in just a few quick moves, and even as time passes, his strength shows no signs of waning. Even Andrion took the opportunity to train himself, knocking each person down one by one like falling leaves. Andrion didn't leave anyone standing, defeating everyone, and the more he fought, the more fired up he became. Sweat poured down, soaking the grass. Andrion alone cleared out the lion team until late afternoon, catching his breath to regain his composure. I didn't expect the soldiers to cheer so loudly. Pon has been defeated. That is the 5th consecutive victory for the prince. Enduring 1,000 waves through hundreds of battles, I will stand firm even against even greater storms. The system confirms the information. A new melody has been added to the battle song. Only now do I rise with sword in hand. The system begins to upgrade, and the combat song's rank has become extraordinary. The combat song changes to match its rank. The battle song has become the duel song. His mana heart has stabilized again. I succeeded. At that moment, Andrion was so exhausted he couldn't stand. Are you okay? The soldier smiled and sat in front of Andrion. We express our respect for your highness's victory. Then they all cheered together, respecting the prince's sword, respecting his fighting spirit, and expressing their admiration for his victory. This strange reaction surprised Andrion. What is this? Just a moment ago, they even wanted to tear me apart. It's only now that I speaks to explain. Deep down, they are simple people, seeking swords and victory. Nothing excites them more. Looking at your face, you probably thought you would incur their hatred. Bell stepped in front of him, pride shining in his eyes. A fair defeat is even more valuable than a dirty victory. When both sides have fought with all their might, does winning or losing still matter? They feel a bit proud when praised, but Duncan might feel a little regretful. The young man with red hair crosses his arms and smiles, knowing he has to give up the sword he's always been proud of to the prince, accompanied by endless teasing. It's truly satisfying. He was too proud of that sword. Andrion lowered his face, laughing at himself. I thought everything I knew had been forgotten and discarded along with Mana's heart. But it seems that at least one thing hasn't changed. The feeling I thought I had lost can now be enjoyed again. That's the nobility in failure and respect for the strong. The spirits of the knights after the cultural exchange are ready for Andrion to return to the palace, but this time he seems a bit reluctant. See you next time. Yu placed her hand on her chest, bowed her head, and replied, "I wish you good health until then, the Lord." The Count politely added, "Please take care of your health as well." Just 3 seconds after turning his head, Andrian Leon Beck had something to say again. "That's right, Count Woden. Please keep the events that happened while I was here a secret." He tilted his head in curiosity. Wouldn't it be more beneficial for His Highness to reveal it openly? Andrian stroked his chin, a mischievous smile on his face. He thought of his beloved sibling waiting at home, and there was someone he wanted to tease a little. After leaving Woden, the group of riders found a place to rest. "Tonight, we will set up camp here." Big Brother informs Andrian that the gods will be patrolling nearby for a while. He nods in approval. "Keep going." Awen is still staring intently at Andrian behind him. He turned to look at her, lost in thought, thinking that Awen would adapt soon enough. Then Andrian Leon Bach yawned deeply and entered his private tent.
I should go inside and rest, but to my surprise, Adelia was already waiting there.
"Your Highness, you're back." He was speechless at her strange behavior. The person I accepted should have been a genius swordsman with an S-grade talent, but she's still doing chores only maids do. Adelia couldn't understand anything when she saw him sighing with a blank face. "Your Highness, is there something that displeases you?" "No, forget it, you can leave now," she replied helplessly. "Yes, Your Highness?" After Adelia Bayan leaves, he tiredly contemplates his next move. Other lion-forged knights are different from what I thought. When I use the power of judgment, most ordinary knights do not possess swordsmanship talents beyond the basic level. In the past, these were the people who, even after a lifetime of rigorous training, would struggle to reach the level of an intermediate swordsman. Ordinary people would have faded into obscurity and despair. Yet people like them reach the level of a swordsman at just 22 to 30 years old. Their innate talent, which superhumans possess but has diminished, cannot be compared, but the foundation of ordinary people has increased significantly. Connecting everything, Andrian immediately stood up thanks to Sigma Mana. My ancestor was a figure who could have reached a transcendent realm in the past. That is why I was very dissatisfied when he discarded that ability. However, this era is one where there is not even a single opportunity to build achievements far beyond the mortal rank. In the end, everything is just the flow of time. I have to accept that. I don't understand this era, so I will start learning from the beginning. Since those words came out of your mouth, someone suddenly spoke up. That's a good way of thinking. Bue clapped his dark hands, regardless of whether it matched Andrian's thoughts or not. It's not too late yet. If you try hard from now on, you can achieve your dream, he foolishly wondered to himself. No dreams at all. He ignored the previous reaction and went straight to the point. Didn't you already capture the hearts of the Lion Kings? If they were other princes, they wouldn't be able to blend in with them so naturally. I don't understand what Bo Von Hat is thinking with those sparkling eyes, like a filter, but that was a very wise decision. Jan, of course, Andrian has no idea what's going on. What? What's wrong with Uncle? He was confused by Bieu's flowery words. Is Tuk Fu going crazy? He clenched his fist and asked again. Do you not remember the conditions of the bet your uncle made with you? Andrian then went over a few betting cases. If the bet was about defeating the third prince, then it's still ongoing. No, our bet was to defeat a two-sword knight. You suddenly realize and point at yourself, so I guess I've won the bet. Bieu Sai steps closer to him, and I will do exactly as I promised back then. Andrian still doesn't fully understand the issue he's referring to. Surprisingly, Bieu pounded his chest and declared himself Beo Van Hat, the Count of the Kingdom and commander of the 3rd Legion. I will officially support Crown Prince Andrian Leon B. Andrian silently cursed in his mind. What the hell is he talking about? Supporting the smart head of yours at that time was the only thing that kept him going. Don't tell me you're saying that Beu Von Hat is just like the sun, giving a solid like. Just trust me. I already said when I wanted to become king, didn't I? After that day, my stepfather's declaration truly became a heavy bomb. Everywhere in the castle, the words are still close. Your Highness, congratulations. We sincerely congratulate you. This is truly a joy for the kingdom. Chasing the newly arrived royal knights and soldiers, causing chaos along with the maids and servants sent from the palace bustling around, and suddenly I find myself at the center of it all. Andrian angrily pointed out the window and shouted, "Clear them all out immediately." My brother remained calm despite his overzealous attitude. Even if you order them to leave, they won't listen, Andrian Leon B. muttered irritably. Then at least get them out of my sight. This is driving me crazy. Just as you wanted. A moment later, the window was also opened. Andrian's ears also returned to their usual calm, finally at peace. Wouldn't this be better if I could enjoy 3 seconds of comfort before the door suddenly opens again? No mercy. Is the elder brother Huin Truong Tran Huin there? Looking at the young man in front of him, he impatiently asked why he was still here at this hour.
That's Julian Leon Beck, the third prince. You acted quite well, secretly learning swordsmanship from Count Banner H and even revealing such grand ambitions.
You still don't even bother to listen to the questions. What did you learn from whom? Julian, annoyed, receives another fake fooling move.
I really intended to save face for you, so how could you do this?
I was planning to let you lose without too much shame. Andrion propped his chin, looking at him like a mischievous kid. Wonderful. I'm so moved I could cry. Jill frowns and points directly at him. Elder brother, you made a big mistake because I will make you pay a heavy price for deceiving me. This one and that one too.
I already said I have no interest in that throne. I need to find the mastermind behind this.
The mastermind is already here, and Andrion has explained everything thoroughly.
So, your uncle will cooperate for a while, so please step back at the right time because I really don't care about titles or positions.
Han Hok clenched his teeth and asked why you started everything on your own without discussing it with him first. Then Bao Lai smirked knowingly. Are you worried about the Banlo H family? Banlir H is the shield protecting the kingdom from monsters in the northern mountains. He continued his intense reassurance, saying as long as the royal family and nobility do not forget the harshness of winter, nothing bad will happen to the Banlir Hao family. He clearly shows his displeasure but continues speaking. If that's really the case, I feel so relieved. The next words will make Andrion reconsider that it's only a matter of time. After all, it will happen eventually. You really don't know that the fate of an eldest child cannot inherit the throne? Things won't change just because you keep avoiding the truth. If you need time to accept reality, I will give you as much as you want. But remember this, the legitimacy of the eldest son will not be lost unless you die. Andrion kept muttering, even after Biu had left. I told you, no matter how much time he gives me, I won't change. What I truly need to regain is the power and strength that have reached a divine level. There's no way I would want something as trivial as the right to inherit the throne. I'm sure I've thought that way before. It seems like a banquet is being held in the royal hall, with announcements echoing throughout the room. The legitimate bloodline of the Leon Beck kingdom, the eldest son of the royal family of Leon Beck. With his appearance, the cheers continued to resound. Crown Prince Andrion Leon Beck is entering, accompanied by piercing gazes like daggers and the proud eyes of Bill and Taylor, and of course, the unworthy thoughts continued. Until the banquet began, Andrion slowly descended the stairs. His face bears the seriousness of a prince, and those present here begin to flatter excessively, truly astonishing. His demeanor is as majestic as the young emperor himself, while inside Andrion secretly despises everything happening.
Making such a fuss just because I lost a little weight? Is this what you call nobility of the kingdom?
It's truly a farce, because everyone in front of him shares the same trait. They vent their feelings openly. Andrion's face was cold and expressionless, not even bothering to move a little among these people. That is the kind of evil karma accumulated by those who steal and trample on others' lives. I never expected all of them to carry that filth. The only one worth paying attention to among them is you, as you step past those still discussing me. Seeing the prince grow so majestic, Andrion walked straight toward Taylor and cheerfully said, Taylor, since you've come, you should come and greet me, right? You also responded politely, Prince, I apologize. I want to thank you for the invitation. Andrion observed Taylor and thought to himself, those who may lack talent but are not corrupted.
Yes, that's enough now to serve as a vessel for the seeds I will sow from now on.
The conversation was suddenly interrupted by an order from a knight, acknowledged by the Emperor of the Bone Empire. The Marquis Mong Perry of Bogon, Ambassador Kulin Bogoni Mong Perry, is approaching. Andrion's expression suddenly changes upon hearing that name. What? The person appearing is the ambassador of the Bogon Empire, Kulin Bogoni Mon. He has a smile on his face as he approaches Andrion, and you can see his eyes wide with surprise. Memories of the past life are recalled by Bone, the eternal enemy we and my friends fought for a long time 400 years ago, bearing a name that left countless scars on this land. How dare he stand before me? A noble accidentally tripped, causing wine in his glass to spill everywhere, soaking Andrion completely, as the noble hurriedly turned to apologize. Your Highness, are you all right? I was in such a hurry to greet you that Godly Then, I am truly sorry, Your Highness. Andre shot him with his gaze. However, the truth is that his eyes are looking toward you, and the space gradually falls into deadly silence. Andrion turns and leaves with a message. I need to go change clothes. That nobleman bowed his head in apology. This old body disobediently committed a grave act of disrespect. C was already waiting here with a cloth in hand. Your Highness, let me escort her. Andrion glanced at the person who just spilled wine on his head and wondered. Who is he? C looked over and quickly answered. That is Duke B. Fei. Andrion wiped his hands with a cloth and walked away, a sneer on his face. Pepe. It turns out not all of them are rotten, and thanks to that I managed to cool down a bit. Night quickly fell, and now I am alone sitting in the darkness. The door opened again, and the person who entered was none other than Biu. I heard that a disturbance just occurred. There is worry on his face. Approaching while explaining, Marca B. Fee said you look like you're about to cause a big trouble. Seems like he's not just talking nonsense. What are you planning to do, Biu? Only now do you speak up and explain. I'm not crazy, I just can't understand. The Bogon family is treacherous and displays their power right in the heart of the kingdom, while the nobles seem to respect them sincerely, something they don't even do for the royal family. The atmosphere is too tense to be called peace, and the relationship is too oppressive to be called an alliance. He asks with a tense face, ultimately wondering why the country has fallen into this state. The topic also made Biu fall into deep thought, but it's nothing special in history. In the past, the kingdom bravely resisted countless invasions by the empire, but it was the exceptional knights who stepped forward to push back the empire. However, as time went on, the empire grew stronger and the gap widened. Faced with a superpower empire, the kingdom ultimately had no choice but to kneel. Hearing this, Andrion's eyes suddenly widened as if he had understood something. Don't tell me it's because of that thing. The story continues. Even as a small nation on the edge of the continent, the kingdom once possessed something that allowed them to stand against the mighty empire. From the founding of the nation, the accumulated achievements were flawless. Some ordinary, some extraordinary, sometimes heroic stories, sometimes legends, and even mythic battle songs. Andrion looked at the blue energy in his hand and sadly pondered. We have already lost all of that. After some time, he finally spoke again. Tukfu, I have changed my mind. Bio was a bit confused by this sudden statement. What do you mean? Andrion placed a hand on his chest and declared, I will try to become king. Bell couldn't hide the surprise on his face, but Andrion was already thinking about how to take action to achieve that goal. I might regret this decision, but it's something I have to do. Time keeps moving forward, even as he remains lost in thought. After all, I personally built half of this country. On the second day of the banquet, Andrion, dressed in a completely new outfit, was walking down the corridor. The announcement of his arrival echoes with grandeur. Crown Prince Andrion Leon B. is entering. The head steward of Count Lerach's northern estate is entering, and Andrion walks in with a cold expression. Today no one dares to approach and start a conversation. Andrion looked at the nobles in front of him and silently thought that the etiquette was so excessive, it was worse than how they treated a foreign noble. His expression doesn't change even slightly, but memories of the past come to mind. When he stood before the people, no one thought he would become king, because he's just a country boy from some remote village. Even among those who have lost everything and been cast out, he's not exactly noble. His steps may be slow, but they are full of certainty. His story begins with that first step. Nevertheless, that young boy stepped forward in front of everyone. Andrion connects with the present just like I do right now. Blue energy surrounds him as his voice rises. Oh, those who have eyes but do not see. That energy quickly spreads throughout the entire room. Andrion's expression now is one of excitement. Standing proudly before the flock, he sings the royal anthem, but his current power cannot match the level of the battle hymn. A part of the battle song has been omitted. Only a quarter of it is sung. Under the pressure of this power on his body, Andrion couldn't help but feel uncomfortable. Compared to the song of the true dragon destroying the world, it's not unbearable, because this battle song is only at the hero level, not mythic. His eyes suddenly widened, but no other battle song suited the current situation better than this one. A figure emerges from the crowd, and all the nobles display expressions of shock. The song has been turned into a special outfit for Andrion. Now this is enough, you can lift your heads. Before he could finish speaking, something from behind caught his attention. Andrion quickly turned his head. This aura. A mysterious fairy race member spoke up. Surprisingly, there are still people who remember the battle song. Andrion's eyes widened in horror. No, that's not just an elf. Why is that woman here? The most beautiful creature ever created by the gods. An innocent race that never kills without reason. Even the smallest life form. The gardeners of the ancient forest with lifespans from 300 to 1,000 years. That is the image of the fairy race in everyone's mind. But in reality, they are brutal beings who use beauty as bait to destroy their enemies. Those called high-ranking elves of the fairy race are born with the qualities of heroes and are even more dangerous. Moreover, she is not just at the level of an ordinary elf, but someone who has lived nearly 1,000 years. Elder 2, F. the High Elf Elder and Sword Dancer on the battlefield of Sigrun, a member of the extermination team who slaughtered the Berserk Dragon 400 years ago, and also the Sigrun who had become twisted at that time, expressed his question, "If your master dies, do you want to come with me? I will make sure you never know what boredom is for the rest of your life." She smiled, touched Ruhan's true form, then a sword, and the love spirit spoke. "So what if I am a sword? It's precisely because I am a sword that I crave it even more. The madman tortured me to the point of horror. Just thinking about it now makes me tremble with fear." Could it be that she has already recognized me? And just when I was singing the royal anthem, Shiatiinduk, he also knows it well. Sigrun approaches and speaks. "Haven't we met somewhere before?" Endrion across from her shook her head frantically. Seeing this, she muttered and asked, "Strange, why do I feel so familiar?" He slowly approached Sigrun and said, "This is the first time I've seen an elf with my own eyes." The other noble members also gradually moved closer to Sigrun. "Really? It's true." She placed her hand on her chin, appearing contemplative, then coldly declared a lie that made Andrion stiffen. He thought to himself that 400 years ago Sigrun was already a top expert in her swordsmanship, so he couldn't imagine what kind of monster she had become now. That's when Sigrun finally spoke to share her thoughts. When humans see elves for the first time, there are usually two reactions. Most are enchanted, but those with higher awareness become cautious. She reached out and almost touched Andrion. However, in my opinion, she then approached with a comment, "And your highness doesn't seem to have reached that level of cultivation yet. It's just that my taste is a little different." This action made Sigrun's expression darken in an instant. She put on a hood and turned to leave. "I was glad to have met you, even if only for a moment." Only now did Andrion allow himself to breathe a sigh of relief, having temporarily overcome a hurdle. The comments echoed as the girls appeared one after another, all too young. "I guess this one doesn't want to meet my gaze. Is someone else being called up next? Could it be to fight me?" Followed by a little girl. "I told you she's too young." There are even women with different expressions, all showing no interest at all. The Empress looks so exhausted that she can barely sit still. Andrion standing beside her did the same. She turned to him and began to lecture. "This is the selection for the Crown Prince Consort. You shouldn't expect them to be like the women you usually meet. The Crown Prince Consort should be gentle, intelligent, strong, and have a solid backing." Unexpectedly, a message from outside announced that the envoy of the fairy clan is here to see you. The Empress nodded in agreement. "All right, the one who appears is none other than Sigrun." She bowed her head respectfully and saluted. "Sigrun of the parasitic race. Greetings to the beautiful Queen Margarita. It's been a long time since the elven race last visited the kingdom. I'm truly surprised." Sigrun directly asked without beating around the bush, "Do you want to find a marriage alliance for the prince?" The Empress also has no intention of hiding it. Just as you guessed, after hearing that, she directly told me that I am an elf. In human terms, you could say I belong to an old, noble family. Andrion just stood to the side, smiling awkwardly and thinking to himself, what is she about to say? Sigrun continued to act innocent, and by coincidence, my age isn't much different from his highness. Only Andrion himself knows the truth. Lying for nearly 1,000 years and claiming never to have lied? How can you tell such blatant lies without feeling embarrassed? I heard that beautiful elves are considered the ideal life partner for humans. There are also those who are always by her side to serve her. If we think in human terms, they are like a knightly order. Actually, from the very first moment I saw the prince, I felt that my fate was intertwined with his. Andrion was lost in thought because of her, as the fairy race never lied about their destiny and soulmate. Is what you just said really true? Hearing this, the Empress also gasped and thought, it really is daring. One statement was enough to cause the noble families to loudly discuss among themselves, and hearing that, I remember that the elves value fate highly, so is a marriage alliance with the elves about to happen? Oh my God. This time Andrion couldn't hold back and immediately acted, grabbing Sigrun's wrist and then pulling her away without saying a word. We need to have a private talk. The nobles looked on and reluctantly accepted the comment. Indeed, a rude fellow. The door to the room quickly closed, and Andrion turned to look at the person beside Sigrun, asking directly without beating around the bush, tell me your true purpose. Sigrun's face wore a smile. I'm only here because of the friendship between the family and the kingdom. Andrion also revealed his hand to her. I ask again. Elder of the fairy race Sigrun, the enforcer who has carried the family's deadly duty for hundreds of years. The clan's sword is a parasite. The question is asked by him. Is your purpose to spy or to carry out the sentence? This time Sigrun also doesn't hide it and smiles. That's interesting. How do you know about me? Andrion's face gradually grew tense as he observed the murderous aura emanating from Sigrun. and silently assessed him. Right now, she is an incomprehensible monster. Her ability to sense destiny from me means her rank is so high that she can glimpse a different past recorded in her soul. Sigran questions calmly and deliberately, each word carrying a threat. You already know I am the executor, so how could you be so foolish as to remain silent in front of me?
Andrion sneered. I know very well that it's just as foolish as opening my mouth in front of an enforcer. Andrion changes the subject. That's enough joking.
Sigran, don't interfere with my fate. I am calculating inside. Right now, she only feels a bit of curiosity about herself. Soon, the fate of this small human will be torn apart by the hands of that crazy fairy. In that case, it's better to stir up even greater interest in her, so that she sees me not as something to be tasted and discarded, but as a delicacy that needs to be aged and savored slowly. Sigran slowly approached, eager to observe Andrion's face. Who really is he? I still remain calm and reply I am just a pitiful prince abandoned by my own father. Sigran asks back with confusion. So what about you, really? And then I received a vague answer. Who knows? A faint smile curved Andrion's lips. If you want to know, just wait and see. This bold statement from him leaves Sigran speechless. Then she spoke up to comment. No wonder I found it strange. I wondered why she was sent on that mission when this girl clearly had no reason to be there. But now I understand. It was because of you. Andrion paled, exhaustion clearly visible on his face. Truly a woman who always gives people chills. They returned to the room where the nobles and the Empress were waiting, and the sight of them holding hands stunned everyone. Andrion stopped in front of the Queen and spoke seriously. I want to tell you that I will be engaged to Sigran. Even Andrion himself was surprised that those words could come out of his mouth. I never thought I would call that name so affectionately one day. I can't go against Sigran's interest now.
The Queen asked again, engaged to the elf race?
Andrion was secretly calculating inside, thinking that although he might gain some time, this was
a serious matter that couldn't be decided hastily, so he wanted to take more time to understand it better. The Empress tilted her head, carefully considering.
That's also fine. Andrion was secretly thinking to the Queen Consort that this was the time to consider the benefits of this marriage. For Sigran, this is the time for my dish to fully mature, but for myself, it's a period to nurture my strength to escape from this crazy fairy. My strong hand slammed down so hard that the teacup shattered. Damn it! The curse echoed loudly throughout the room. That bastard. Clearly nothing more than me except for being born earlier, but still has the nerve to act superior. Julian's face was now flushed with anger. He remembered Andrion's actions and was so furious he almost burst a blood vessel. Recently, not only had he suddenly declared his support, but he also cut down the flower of the Iron Lion City. This time, they even dared to mess with the elves. I thought women and girls were only about being beautiful. But unexpectedly, the elf race's presence far exceeds imagination. Jill sneered, then muttered to himself with a smug look. That's right. I have a sparring match with that guy coming up. Killing him would cause a big mess, so better to just cut him a few times so he can't be a man anymore, and I will trample you underfoot in a miserable way. A knight was already waiting. His voice rang out. This training match is officially certified by me, the captain of the Royal Knight Squad, who bears the title of Silver Lion of Stuttgart. I declare that no one can oppose the outcome of this fight. Please draw your swords, your highnesses. Andrion lazily yawned on one side. It's just a sword fight, why all the fuss? John, with great arrogance, drew his sword and said, I've prepared a lot for you. I've brought quite a few spectators, are you satisfied? He said with a challenging tone, hoping you won't disappoint those who came to watch. Andre calmly replied, I saw it coming, you talk too much. Duilian roared with fury, shouting curses. After the match ends, I hope you still have the energy to chat like now. When Andrion saw him rush to attack, he responded coldly, originally planning to toy with him a bit, quickly moving to end the fight. But now I'm a bit busy. Duyen kept collapsing to the ground without even having a chance to react, leaving everyone watching, stunned. Even the referee overseeing the match was wide-eyed in shock. Is that really the crown prince I used to know? Andrion's expression remains unchanged from start to finish as he sheathes his sword. At this moment, Sot Hayu slowly spoke up. As a member of the public and the referee of this match, I conclude that the third prince cannot continue competing. The winner is the eldest prince. Andrion glanced back with a sharp look, his face tense as he muttered, Do these so-called nobles really come to watch children fight in such crowds? Are they, the nobles, really discussing among themselves now? Did His Highness Duilian truly lose? He is a promising second-tier expert of the kingdom, so why? How could he lose to the crown prince? You've only been training for a few months, right? Duilian snapped back to consciousness with his head covered in bandages. He nearly jumped up, cursing at that damn useless bastard, then moved and swung the door wide open.
Get ready to go, I will return to fight him, a voice from behind interrupted his actions.
Your Highness, that knight presented himself calmly and steadily. The Crown Prince left the capital with Count Bonlair H. right after the match ended, and Julian impatiently asked again, "Leaving? Where are you going?" He hesitantly replied, "I heard that you went north, to the Bonlair H. family estate." Bai also had to comment beside Andreon.
Now you can ride a horse quite skillfully.
He smiled and replied to him,
Once you get the hang of these, you'll learn very quickly, right?
"This arrogant attitude of your nephew makes me grimace. I've spoken out of turn. You should learn to be a little more humble. But why rush so much?"
The banquet has ended. Why don't you rest for a few days? Andreon quickly explained, because there is no place for me in the capital. I have no intention of seeking support from those who do not recognize their own country's ruler and only know how to flatter the imperial hounds. Soldiers and knights suit me better than the aristocrats, don't you think?
Bu was by her side explaining. They may not be as good at calculations as the nobles, but they are much more determined.
Do you think winning their favor is easy?
Hearing this, a smile appeared on Andreon's lips. We will face life and death together and eventually develop feelings, so what are you worried about? Bu at this moment is lost in thought, still unable to shake the feeling that he is rushing too much. Andreon thought to himself that if he hesitated any longer, he would have to marry that crazy woman. In the past, everyone she set her sights on ended up destroyed.
Before that, I had to strengthen my power. That's impossible in Yenbin royal capital, so I have no choice but to leave.
The place to advance my growth and my sack's sword is elsewhere. A place where people's integrity is tested the most, where many battle hymns are born, and where I need to be, is the battlefield. They announced their arrival at a different place. That mountain is the Sword Edge Range, the border that my family has guarded for generations. Andreon shivered as the cold wind blew through him. Seeing this, he kindly reminded him that if he couldn't stand it, he should go inside the carriage. Andre shook his head. "No need. I have to get used to this cold, any." A man's voice came from inside the carriage, as if I am causing trouble. This old man is once again taking someone else's carriage. Andre looks at him with curiosity. "Then why are you following us? There's nothing to see," Niccolo excitedly explained. "If not now, when else would I have the chance to learn about this dangerous northern region? Furthermore, the book I am about to write will surely be useful to His Highness." Andrian was annoyed by this attitude. The annoying old man, his gaze shifted elsewhere, settling on Awen. Andrian slowly approached and asked Han with concern, "Awen, are you okay? Sitting in front must be very cold, right?" She quickly turned her head and vigorously denied. "God is fine. If you're tired, you can switch shifts anytime you want. As a knight, how could you seek comfort for yourself?"
This attitude is a satisfactory comment. Having someone so full of energy is also a good thing. Awen's face turned pink as she quietly moved away.
Andrian only then glanced back, and it seemed that the people forced to follow the royal order were quite dissatisfied. If they were here, he would have set them straight. The reason for that is because the king previously ordered the royal knights not to be your personal knights. Weren't there many knights under your command as well? Although I still doubt whether you truly consider them knights or not. Andrian was angered by his words. This narrow-minded old man also kept C from going north for that reason. No matter how many crazy things this body has done, it's still his blood. The king's attitude seems a bit over the top. There must be some hidden reason I don't know about. Bayu saw the snow falling thicker and urged to hurry up. "We have to speed up or we'll be trapped by the snowstorm. We can't go forward or backward now. The snowflakes will soon turn into a snowstorm." The harsh expedition made it impossible to hear the voice of the person next to him. Bu anxiously looked back, then quickly ordered to leave the carriage behind, keeping only the horses and moving on by land. Andrian looked around and quietly wondered if the screams used mana, then quickly understood with the person inside the carriage. "Adelia." Adelia quickly grabbed his hand. "Adelia, Your Highness, thank you." Andrian replied softly, "All right." Awen hurriedly runs over, worried. "Your Highness, are you all right?" Andrian replied calmly.
"I'm fine. The others are in chaos. Be careful over there."
"Hold on, wait a moment. The wind is too strong." Andrian quickly took action and didn't forget to give instructions. "Awen, take care of Adelia." Ah received the order with a nod. "Yes, Your Highness." He stepped forward and asked those fools to put down their shields. "With such a big shield, the wind will blow it away, so besides the sword, throw away all that bulky stuff, and later you can come back and find that big guy over there." The leader lined up in a single file. The other knights watching Andrian's actions couldn't help but marvel, saying,
Looks like we don't need to step in, just a little ceremony first and then help. Is the prince experienced in real combat?
Each step in the snowstorm feels as heavy as 1,000 pounds, everyone moving forward when suddenly someone falls. A quick alert reaches Andrion. Your Highness, a soldier has fallen behind. He moved quickly to the side and grabbed the unconscious man's collar. Andrion simply carried him on his shoulder and shouted harshly, "What are you doing? Why aren't you moving quickly?" They only know how to obediently follow. Yes, Your Highness. The group continued moving towards the castle ahead. Andre was breathing heavily. As the hellish march neared its end, everyone's steps were exhausted. Andrion sank to the ground, looked ahead, and muttered his thoughts. This damn snowstorm, clear up quickly so it can end. The sky turns blue as if nothing ever happened. Bayu slowly steps forward. At this moment, he stops, then slowly turns his head, and a flag is raised. Bayu presents himself at a steady pace as the rightful owner of Banlo H and the commander of the kingdom's 3rd Legion. I welcome the visit of the Crown Prince. Andrion looked excited when he heard those words. Bayu smiled and sincerely welcomed the visitor to East City. This is Winter Fortress, a stronghold at the northernmost part of the kingdom built to block monsters from the Sword Mountain range. It's a weak point used to fight monsters. The rough knights curse loudly, saying, "Oh, that exposed area is where monsters pour down, cold, harsh, and dangerous, with a very low survival rate." That's a place I absolutely don't want to go to a second time. The worst workplace for ordinary soldiers, even the noble women are loudly discussing it. Winter Fortress is probably the greatest weapon, and thus the biggest chain of the Banlair H family. From the very beginning, that cold and treacherous land was nothing special. The nobles of the realm can easily deduce the political standing of Winter Fortress. But once again, the massive gate was pushed open, and a figure with black hair appeared from inside. For those born and raised in Banlair, that place was a duty and a pride they carried for life. This young man places his hand on his chest and declares loudly, "Vincent Banlair sings, 'From today, I will end my role as commander and return to be the captain of the ranger squad.'" "Luckily, your father has returned safely." Bayu placed his hand on his son's shoulder and continued. "Vincent, you've worked hard enough." A teasing voice sounded from behind. "What is this?" "Uncle, do you also have a son?" Does Bayu look up at the stars while replying, "How many years have I lived for you to think I don't have a single child?" Andrion pointed at Vincent's face and continued. Looking closely, there is a bit of a resemblance, especially the stubborn-looking corner of the mouth. Let me introduce you, Vincent. This is His Royal Highness Crown Prince Andrion. Vincent bows and greets. "Captain of the Ranger Battalion Ban, H. Vincent of the Ban family, at your service, Your Highness." His subtle actions pleased him very much. He was glad to meet him. In truth, Vincent was feeling increasingly dissatisfied inside. The Winter City is a fortress of true warriors who dare to sacrifice their lives for noble beliefs. It's not a place for a scoundrel banished from the capital to wander around with women. A knight from this place offered to escort Prince Andrion on a tour of the castle. He accepted the good intention. All right. And Vincent himself was so angry that his veins bulged on his face. Why did Father bring along someone like that? "Father, what exactly is going on?" he asked softly. "Just as you heard, I have decided to become Andrion's patron, and Andrion will stay in Banhan. The more you hear, the more you feel resentful." Isn't that the discarded name that His Majesty threw away? Didn't Father also criticize him as a useless person with such a bad nature? His comment made Bayu look to the side. He simply made a gentle remark that people can change too. "Along with that, I have only one thing to remind you of. Vincent, just follow him without holding any prejudice." They quickly moved to a room. "How is the cleanup of the monster village progressing?" Vincent is the representative speaking. "We have been continuously eliminating enemies, but there are still quite a few areas not yet cleared. Now that my father has arrived, I plan to take official action." Bayu continued to ask about other matters. "So what about the remaining forces?" He quickly responded that the ranger squad would place a finger on the chess piece on the map, with a different voice saying the problem is that a small group of orcs, fewer than 20, has occupied the mountain pass area. Bell, upon hearing this, hurriedly replied that with that scale, it would be very difficult to handle just with the ranger team's arrows. "Yes, so currently I am identifying the knights stationed inside the city." Unexpectedly, Andrion interrupted the conversation with a statement. Just one of his declarations was enough to make the entire room noisy with objections. "Your Highness, the Oros troops in the Sword Mountain range are very different from usual. If anything happens, even the ranger team's campaign could be affected." At this moment, Andrion finally looked back and asked B-Tuck's assistant for his opinion, then turned to Vincent. "Vincent, what is the confirmed scale and strength of the Oros group?" He presents it in extreme detail. Based on current confirmations, there are at most 20 of them. The existence of orc warriors or orcs is confirmed, but it cannot be definitively denied. Then, Bayu turned directly to Andrion and asked, "Do you have confidence?" His words surprised Vincent so much that he slammed the table and stood up. "Father, that mountain pass is one of the main routes the Rangers often use. If that place accidentally becomes a battlefield with the orcs, the tasks afterward will become even more difficult tenfold. Moreover, if anything happens to the safety of the prince, Banlair's stance will also be affected." Andrion listened quietly with a smile. Raising a clever child, huh? But Belle's decision is clear. There's no need to worry any further. "Jan, what do you need?" Andrion begins to present his battle plan. "First, prepare about 3 guides, and let's change the equipment for my troops a bit. If there are bows, borrow a few as well." B nodded in confirmation. "That request is not difficult at all. I will prepare accordingly." Only Vincent, from start to finish, completely does not believe what is happening before his eyes. The soldiers quickly received the order to deploy. One of them asked in confusion, "Huh? What are you talking about?" Andrion calmly states, "We have already received the mission to subjugate the orcs. The number of enemies is 2 orcs, either warriors or mages, possibly both." Sir Knight, scratching his head, replied exhausted and confused, "Your Highness, we already have the 3rd Legion, so why are we still—" "Our mission is to protect the prince." His answer gave me more reasons to counter him. "That's good then. Anyway, to protect me, you all have to follow. The 3rd Legion will contact us today, so go get your equipment and report back to me. At this point, they can only obediently follow orders." "Yes, Your Highness." Andrion Cliff looked back and silently assessed. "No matter what, they are soldiers given to me, so I must train them to become useful. They may not seem very reliable in the snowstorm, but still, they are the elite carefully selected by the Royal Seven, and their abilities are quite good. This person's information is being displayed, including Han's swordsmanship, tactics, and infantry defense strategies, though there is also a suspicious-looking individual mixed in." A new day quickly arrived, and the time for the expedition had come. Andrion looked at Vincent in front of him, incredulous, and exclaimed, "You're the one leading the way." "Your attitude is making the other party a bit uncomfortable. Maybe Your Highness doesn't know, but if this campaign fails, it will cause bigger problems than you think." Andrion was about to reply dismissively. "We won't fail." That comment just made him annoyed. "You're thinking too simply." The two of them clearly radiated hostility towards each other. The information appeared before Andrion as he read the line and silently assessed. "I can't see the status window, so at least one of them must be a Crimson Knight? Among the ones in the back, there's only one real ranger. The rest are just fake rangers in disguise as knights. They probably think that if something happens, they can handle it themselves without me. Well, at this level, I'll just turn a blind eye." Andrion turned around and signaled, "Then Adelia, I won't be bringing you along, so don't worry about it." "Sorry, Your Highness, but the truth is, Andrion is worried about himself. If his abnormal development trait goes wrong, I will be the one in trouble." They began their march, with Vinin constantly reminding them, "We need to walk carefully and conserve our energy as much as possible. If our stamina drops, our limbs will freeze and fighting will become much harder. Especially in a place like this mountain range covered with snow and ice, you need to be extra careful with your steps." Besides, Andrion's face is already as black as a pot, and he's even more talkative than his father. A rabbit suddenly appears from the bushes. Andrion looks at those around him and whispers to himself, "A rabbit indeed?" Under the observations of binoculars, they quickly locate the monster's position. The aggressive orcs are having a meal, and Vincent's scout becomes serious. He turned around and signaled, "What should we do about the orc crowd up ahead?" Andrion responded with a raised hand. The knights quickly took their positions and loaded their guns. The orc turned around when it heard the commotion. Andrion moves toward the monsters with a sinister smile on his face. "Hello! It's been a while since I saw you." The signal was quickly issued, firing arrows directly at the orcs and readying himself for battle. The sound of heavy footsteps echoes as his gaze sharpens while drawing his weapon. Andrion charges at the orc in front of him. A growl full of deadly intent echoes as Andrion smiles with delight, ready to charge into battle. The first strike was delivered powerfully by him. The smell of blood filled the air. Andrion continues to move forward, his face filled with extreme excitement. "The thing I have always longed for and desired. Very well. This is truly the atmosphere of a battlefield. Right now." Alwyn hurriedly ran closer with a warning. "The prince is in great danger." However, Andrion raised his voice to stop her. "Don't come here." This statement surprised Alwyn so much that she hesitated for a moment, while Andrion was completely focused on the battle. There is a smile on his face because if he gets caught up in it, it would be over 400 years ago and even longer ago. That was a time when ORC was not a monster, but one of the noble rulers of this continent. This is not mythology or heroism, just someone whose name has yet to be recorded in history. The song of a pitiful man who hates the ore is a mournful elegy of a father who fought to the very end, piling up green corpses like a mountain in his fleeting revenge. Below, a pool of bright red blood has formed. I sing the song of revenge. The purse was suddenly thrown down roughly. Joseph quickly warned, I hear Winter City is a place where if you're not careful, you'll lose your life. Meanwhile, he remained calm and reassured. Don't worry too much, there won't be any fighting. The Marquise began to mock. What can that trash prince do when he arrives there? You can tell just by looking that he's planning to help inside the city to steal credit from my external uncle. And then the old man's tone gradually became smug. The important thing is not that trashy guy, but Banlo singing. Keep an eye on the Winter City's movements and report anything suspicious to me. On this side, Joseph gently clenched the pouch in his hand as the other party once again questioned whether he could do it. And soon, he replied, I will do my best. My Lord Count, the villagers are returning to the present and Joseph is extremely frightened, clearly hearing what was said. Lying, what he sees now is a berserk orc, which is completely different from what he heard.
Awen shouted loudly. The front line held their formation and advanced.
As she finished speaking, the orc began attacking them. In the face of danger, Joseph froze in fear. Damn it, what should I do now? The command continues to ring out, forcing him to brandish his spear as the second row attacks. After a long moment, Joseph slowly opened his eyes from the stab, only to see the orc right in front of him, having no effect at all. Joseph, overwhelmed with fear, hastily dropped his weapon. It's all over. At that moment, the person behind him suddenly charged forward. Taking advantage of the monster's distraction, Awen quickly acted. As she brushed past the orc, she sliced off one of its arms, causing it to collapse right under her sword, and the fallen arm even frightened him into stepping back. As for Awen, she warned sternly, this is a battlefield, don't casually drop your weapons. Joseph quickly nodded in response. Yes. And then a group of soldiers began to surround Awen. She also pointed her sword at the OR and said, Prepare the entire army for battle. After giving the command, Awen hesitated a bit and said, There are quite a few of them. With the current number of people, it seems difficult to handle them all. Suddenly, her eyes widened in shock at the overwhelming smell of blood as the orc in front of her was suddenly pierced through. Their screams echoed, causing Joseph's face to turn pale, and even the other soldiers were stunned stiff. As for Awen, she was completely stunned when she saw a stream of blood. Meanwhile, Andrion was calmly drawing his sword from the target. The orc's heavy body falls to the ground as the tense atmosphere thickens. At that moment, Andrion's burning desire flares up even more, as if sensing something strange. Awen tried to ask the prince, but he didn't answer and only looked up. Then, Andrion charged forward despite being stopped. The prince's every step is now hurriedly changing. While inside Andrion, memories of past battles still feel insufficient. At that moment, the owner used him to defeat the orc. No matter how many he kills, it's never enough. He keeps slaying more and more. Still, his face remained emotionless as he continued to seek the blood of his enemies. Andrion gradually remembered his aura, the man who had wandered across the barren lands ruled by the orcs. The fierce ORC swung its axe down, but he leapt high into the air. This time, he directly set it on fire. After defeating him, he calmly continued walking. At that moment, snow had already stained his feet, and mana in his heart had long been exhausted. His body twisted and burned with a fiery red, yet he did not stop. Gradually, he lifted his face, drinking blood and chewing on the flesh of the orcs, and in an instant his hair turned white. With each step, the man gradually grew old. The magic sword in his hand supported him and was burning the last of his life force for his final wish. The witnesses to the murders, with not a single piece of flesh left, are the ones who saw everything. His face darkened with horror. Along with that was a stained picture, a soul-warding ritual for his wife and daughter. Returning to the battle, he immediately widened his eyes and finally focused all his attention on a red flag. When he faced his lifelong enemy, his body was battered and scarred. He suddenly smiled weakly, then in the next moment, he charged forward like a wild beast. Facing King Orc, he directly approached it and for the first time tried to attack its head. However, the orc easily caught him and then pressed him down with force. His entire body suddenly crashed into the snow. That fatal blow left him stunned, leaving no chance left. After a moment, the Orc King slowly raised his fist, leaving behind the fallen warrior. But that man never gave up until the very end. He struggled to breathe, each breath weak and fragile. At the same time, his vision gradually blurred, a story he had never told anyone. In the end, he did not speak a word. It's a story no one knows about. And in his hand, Ruhan lies quietly. Maybe I'm the only one who remembers all of that. The sudden interruption of the memory also startled Andrion. Now, only the massive corpses of Orosk remain around him. Suddenly, Andrion heard a familiar sound nearby. Looking at him, I realized the battle was still ongoing. Knights, stop the oar, and the others hold back the oar. Andrion quickly clenched his palm, a flash of light sparking in his eyes. I remember now. With a new surge of emotion, the raging fire ignited again. The song of revenge remains unfinished. Then Andrion began to tell himself that he had to finish this song. With that determination, he took down each orc one by one. After taking down 3 in a row, Andrion immediately turned like an arrow and stabbed it straight in the stomach. The bloody smell rises, but Andrion remains emotionless as before, adding a new verse to the song of revenge. The song immediately echoed in his mind as the pile of withered corpses grew into a mountain. Below, a pool of red blood gradually forms. As the song continues, Andrion suddenly mutters, "And I stand before that place. I stand before that beast with the song of revenge echoing, and I stand there remembering the soul of that person." When it ended, the system announced that the revenge song had become a soul-stabilizing melody. His spirit gradually returned, and Andrion tried to look around. He quickly saw Bill and Vincent behind him. Then their flags were seized, and the Oros banner was torn apart. Vincent did not hesitate and declared that the Oros had been completely destroyed. At the same time, he thought to himself, "We declare victory." As soon as he finished speaking, Vincent continued to shout, "This is our victory!" Meanwhile, Andrion became curious about that person's name. As soon as he saw you, he remembered that it must be Vincent Banner H., the heir of the family who sees the battle with monsters as his lifelong mission. The one who sacrificed their life in the past to eliminate all the ore. Andrion begins to wonder, could they be the same unfortunate avenger? Back then, he whispered it, and even in the next life, his tone grew more resolute, insisting that it was the very thing that made him exclaim, "How strange is this coincidence?" "Yeah,